Chapter 1395. The temperature continued to rise. Bojo could only hear his suppressed breathing and her own heartbeat. His black and white eyes were still filled with confusion. She placed her hands on Chin Mo's waist and bit her lips lightly. They were slightly red, like flowers in the morning, with dew on them. The numbness hadn't subsided because when she glanced up, she seemed confused. Why did they stop? Chin Mo's gaze sank. Chin Mo's eyes sank. After taking a deep breath, he covered her with his jacket and kissed her again. But this time, it was just a kiss. After all, even at this stage, young Master Chin hadn't forgotten that the location wasn't right. Even though the elevator was well sealed, there was one thing. Chin Mo glanced up, his cold eyes glancing towards the top left corner. The threatening gaze seemed to be able to penetrate through the screen. His assistant immediately switched off the surveillance equipment. The next second, he received a call from Boss Chin. Did you see it? His assistant shook his head. No. It was just a kiss. Boss Chin, aren't you clearer than anyone else? Chin Mo smirked. In the future, don't install surveillance cameras in my elevator. Yes. His assistant truly felt that in the future, Boss Chin would often come to the company to display his affection. Bojo listened as Chin Mo hung up the phone. She was smart enough to notice that the Chin Group's security system had always been thorough. There would definitely be surveillance cameras in such elevators. Bojo wasn't embarrassed. She glanced up and thought for a moment before tilting her head. Do you want me to remove them? With that, Chin Mo buttoned her jacket. Behave yourself, MMH. Aren't you afraid of the bad influence? Bojo's smile was always devilish. Chin Mo chuckled. Which girlfriend would remove all the surveillance cameras in her boyfriend's company? You should hand them over to the security. Also, don't climb the ceiling, it's dirty. Bojo felt that the Almighty was despising her. But it didn't seem like it when he was zipping her up. He was probably afraid she would be cold outside. Bojo picked up the scarf she had just received. Chin Mo arched a brow. You want to wear it? It looks good with my uniform. Bojo gestured. Chin Mo reached out and took the scarf away. I'll buy you a better one. Bojo laughed lightly. Brother Mo, don't tell me you're jealous. Heh, what's there for me to be jealous of? Everyone's gifts added together are not as good as the one I gave you. Chin Mo spoke slowly. After he helped her with her collar, he took out a mask and put it on her ears. When young Master Chin did these things, he gave off a feeling of extreme abstinence. It was hard to imagine that he would take care of anyone like that. Bojo tried to reveal her eyes. When did you give me a present? How other people expressed their love. Flowers for his girlfriend. Put in a good word for your girlfriend. Everything depended on his girlfriend. The Almighty didn't have any of these. The only fun he had was digging up her dark history and having a heart-to-heart talk with her at night. Basically, the content of their conversation was about how many people she had confessed to. Chin Mo watched the slightly depressed handsome face in front of him. He arched a brow nonchalantly, his voice faint. Am I not considered a present? Bojo choked, coughing lightly. How could she have forgotten about that? In that case, the Almighty's present was indeed better than everyone else's combined. Idiot. Chin Mo stared at her for a long while before breaking into a light chuckle. He pulled her up and left, taking all the gifts she had received along the way. Lollipops like these, I can buy them for you if you want. Do you want sweets from someone else or from your boyfriend, MMH? Bojo didn't have to think, of course it was from her boyfriend. Where's the scarf? Where's the glove? Such a cute and trendy item doesn't suit you. Anyway, Bojo understood the Almighty's meaning. She couldn't use the gifts from others. It would be a waste to throw them away. Bojo didn't want to throw away the gifts from her fans. Chin Mo's voice was calm. Who asked you to throw them away? Give it to Lin Feng, he suits this style. All right. Bojo broke into a smile. After the competition, Lin Feng was lying in the dormitory, resting. In reality, he was sleeping. When the dormitory manager called him down to take the gifts, he was still confused. Pink and white gloves. Checkered scarf. What were these? More importantly, the dormitory manager had told him, your friend said that you suit this style. What did he mean by that? He was a straight man, why would he suit pink and white gloves? He couldn't throw them away. He scratched his head. When he brought them up, he couldn't help but wear the gloves. Involuntarily, Lin Feng was about to remove them. Yun-Hu pushed the door open. He swept a glance at his attire, his gaze landing on his hands. Lin Feng's face was filled with awkwardness. How was he supposed to explain the origins of the gloves to a gay? In the end, it was just a glove, not a condom. Why couldn't he explain it? It was just a little pink in color. Cough, I don't know which girl who has a crush on me gave it to me. Lin Feng had a serious expression on his face. I've already told them not to give me gifts all the time. Unfortunately, I'm too handsome, so I'm always troubled in this aspect. It's probably because the girls gave me the wrong bag and gave me their gloves. Yun-Hu listened to him quietly. Then he placed the curry chicken he bought on the table. His light-colored trench coat was half open before he smiled slowly. The gloves were given by Captain and Little Spade, they said that this style suits you. Lin Feng, did you know how awkward it was? He had lied and was exposed on the spot. F***ck. All of a sudden. Yun-Hu leaned forward, his fingers touching the gloves that he hadn't had time to remove. MMH. It does suit you. Lin Feng stilled. It was too close. Ever since the competition, he hadn't been this close. The uneasiness came again. Lin Feng tilted his head to the side and took off his gloves. Yun-Hu saw it but didn't say anything. He just hung the trench coat on his arm, returning to a safe distance. Come and eat, the cafeteria has a special meal today. Lin Feng was hungry too. Eating was good, there wasn't any uneasiness when he ate. When Yun-Hu went to wash his hands, he opened the box and took out 2 cans of beer. Boys were always like this. They were always very rough. There was no water during the meal, so he used beer as a substitute. After Lin Feng set up the food, he saw someone walking over and lowered his head to eat. Lin Feng was still a straight man when it came to eating. He took big mouthfuls, burying his head and stuffing his food. Yun-Hu first took a sip of beer, then glanced at him and frowned. You're so hungry, why didn't you order takeout? I wasn't very hungry just now. Lin Feng's cheeks puffed up when he spoke. He drank the beer and then exhaled deeply. I feel alive. Yun-Hu laughed. This was probably how liking someone was. As long as he was by your side, whatever he did, said or ate would be pleasing to the eye. Why are you looking at me? As Lin Feng spoke, he felt that something wasn't right. Yun-Hu retracted his gaze and replied nonchalantly, nothing much, the professor called for you today. F***ck. It can't be. Lin Feng bit the bamboo chopsticks. Was he that unlucky? MMH, Yun-Hu replied. I said it for you. Lin Feng made a heart gesture. Brother, what did you say? Did you find a good excuse for me and the professor believed it? I knew that with you around, I can rely on everything. I said the truth. Yun-Hu took another sip of beer slowly. He said that due to your heavy extracurricular work, you will continue to skip classes and asked him to discipline you when he has time. What? There was a loud crack. The chopsticks in Lin Fang's hand dropped. Brother, are you trying to get me killed? Yunhu took another pair of chopsticks and passed it to him. It's a good thing to inherit the Lin family, but there are some people you aren't suited to interact with. You don't have to manage the company, you can learn a lot from the professor. Besides, I'll be in charge of your attendance in the future. The professor has some papers, you can sort them out. Lin Feng couldn't catch his breath. Brothers. Why did everyone like to attend university? It was because of the freedom in university. What did this mean? Attendance and papers. Was he going back to his normal high school life? Moreover, the one who caused all this was his good brother. Lin Feng leaned his head against the wall. My results are really good, I don't have to go overseas. You can tell this to the professor. Yunhu watched his expression of resistance, his fingers tightening. Or do you think it's better to work at the construction site than in school? Lin Feng hesitated. That's not it. Yunhu arched a brow. Is it because of people? Ah. Who? Lin Feng didn't reply. Just then, Yunhu's phone on the table rang. The name that flashed on the screen was not unfamiliar to him. It had been this number before he left the country, and it was still the same number now. That boy. Lin Feng watched as Yunhu picked up the phone. He didn't seem to have anything to hide. What is it? Lin Feng didn't hear the voice on the other side. Because he could not stand the situation, he simply stood up and walked away under the pretext of grabbing another can of beer. His head felt heavy, and he didn't know what he was thinking. He clearly wanted to take a beer, but in the end, he took out a bag of spicy sticks. What was going on? Lin Feng looked at the things in his hands and estimated that it was about time before he walked back. Sure enough, when he sat back in his chair and picked up his chopsticks, Yunhu had already hung up. You eat first, I'm going out for a bit. Lin Feng grunted in acknowledgement. He lowered his head and stuffed another mouthful of rice into his mouth. Then, he added, I might go out later too. Take the key with you. Yunhu glanced at him. Where are we going? Lin Feng thought to himself, you're going out on a date, why do you care where I'm going? The report should have been submitted some time ago. Yunhu knew it was about the Lin Corporation and he knew who was in charge of Lin Feng. Didn't I say to stay in school? Lin Feng placed the beer in his hand down. I think it's better outside, I'll tell the professor. Yunhu tightened his grip on the phone. You think it's better outside? Ha, I'm being a busybody. Lin Feng was annoyed by the sound of the phone. No, everyone thinks differently, right? You're so smart, so you'll definitely be suitable in school. I'm different. It's not like you don't know that I've always been slow in this aspect. With a personal system to guide me, I can grow faster. Plus, the company can't wait for me that long. So, you think I can't bring you along? Yunhu tilted his head and seemed to smile. Lin Feng didn't want the atmosphere to be too tense. Firstly, the competition had just ended, and secondly, Huzi had just returned. Lin Feng glanced at Huzi's phone screen. All right. Don't you have to go out? I can handle my matters. I'm not a child anymore. Basically. This kind of excuse. It could be said to be a complete rejection. Yunhu's hand fell to the side, his eyes looking at the person standing in front of him. Sometimes, he really wanted to ask a certain someone. You can't accept a man. Or you simply can't accept me. But he couldn't ask such a question. Because once he asked, it would be equivalent to forcing everything into a corner. Since he had already told him. This time, he wouldn't be like the previous time. He was determined to turn him gay. So, no matter what, he wouldn't retreat just like that. We'll talk about this when I come back. Before Yunhu left, he reached out and caressed Lin Feng's head. Lin Feng was a little stunned. When the door closed, he couldn't eat anymore. What was this? Didn't Yunhu know how to keep a distance? Or was it because he had completely put him back in the position of a good brother? Hence, he wouldn't be so careful with his actions. Lin Feng threw himself onto the bed. He didn't turn on the lights as the sky gradually darkened. That phone number appeared in his mind again. It seemed it was better to move out. If he didn't move out, the direction was getting more and more wrong. Perhaps it wasn't something wrong with Yunhu. It was him. What exactly did this F***ed up feeling mean? Lin Feng raised his hand and placed it on his forehead. He told himself. Things had already come to this stage. It was already useless to say that he regretted it. The competition was also over. It was already the second half of his third year. The school wouldn't say anything even if he moved out. If the professor said it seriously, he would get permission. Everything was fine. He was still greedy for the gentleness that belonged to him in the past. Not long ago, he didn't have the right to have it anymore. Those two people were very good. He could only say. They probably weren't fated in this life. They were destined to be in the position of brothers. It wasn't that the timing wasn't right. It was just that the timing wasn't right. In this world, it was the easiest thing to regret. It was probably because you were determined to turn gay. Chapter 1396. Lin Feng didn't wait for Yunhu to come back. He found an excuse, sent a message and went home. When Yunhu received the message, his eyes dimmed. The boy looked at it. It's him. Yunhu kept his phone, his voice calm. I've arranged everything for you. Look for Director Xiao when you get there. Don't appear here again. The boy wanted to have something with Yunhu. But he realized that the person who asked him to act was too hard to get close to. No, it wasn't just hard to get close to. He had never intended to have anything to do with any boy other than that person. After the act, the boy realized it. Hence, after receiving the money, he was well behaved. This time, it was something they had agreed on beforehand. But the boy didn't understand why this person wanted him to go out of town. Mr. Yun, can I ask when I can come back? Yunhu glanced at him. I said don't appear here again. The boy paused, feeling the impatience. In reality, Yunhu's temper wasn't good to anyone. Only Lin Feng. Most of the time, as Lin Feng had said, as the only grandson of the Yun family, he didn't care about anyone's feelings. Even if he had a good upbringing. But his nature was arrogant. That was probably what he meant. The boy didn't dare to say anything else. He knew that even though this person was a university student, with his family background, it would be easy to make him disappear from this circle. Moreover, his current boss had given him the title of VIP. After Yunhu met him, he called his good friend, his voice emotionless. Murongan, what do you mean? From what you said, did you meet him? How is it? I saw you take him away previously, so I kept an eye on him. This time, I asked him to contact you directly. Brother, you're finally enlightened. Yes, Lin Feng isn't bad, but people are straight, right? With your thoughts, he definitely wouldn't be able to understand them. Moreover, I feel that even if he understood them, it's not like he'll. Before he could finish his sentence, Yunhu interrupted him. I seem to have warned you before, don't talk about people like him in front of me. Okay, I was wrong. Murongan didn't want to anger this boss. Is it because I don't like my arrangement today? This time, Yunhu laughed, but his voice was extremely cold. If you continue to arrange these messy things, you know what the consequences will be. Mu Rong'an's back stiffened, and he immediately restrained his tone. All right, I know you're being conservative. The competition is over, so what do you plan to do next? Didn't you say you wouldn't go abroad? Yunhu replied faintly, knowing that he wouldn't mess around. Stay in school. It's as simple as staying in school. Murong'an had long wanted to do something with this big shot. Apart from him, probably no one else knew how powerful this big shot was. He was the top student of a university, and he had never gotten that title for nothing. When it came to international discussions, those professors would always bring him along. This was a very powerful thing. Ordinary people might not be able to feel it, but businessmen would understand. To be able to attend such events, it wasn't just a matter of money and power. It was also a matter of real ability, or even top-notch ability. In addition, Yunhu already had a background, so it was easy for him to get some resources. It would be a pity if such a person didn't do something. Yunhu spoke on the phone as he walked up the stairs, his tone still the same. During this period of time. Don't. Murong'an's eyes suddenly turned. Haven't you always been doing that? Yunhu frowned. Speak properly, what's that? Lin Corporation. Murong'an grasped the most important point. Hasn't Lin Feng been running around the Lin Corporation's construction projects recently? They seem to want to cooperate with us. How about it? Are you interested? At this moment, Yunhu had already opened the door to the dormitory. It was already empty. The person who was originally sitting at the table was nowhere to be seen. It was empty as though the wind could pour in. Yunhu closed the door, lowering his lids to glance at the direction of the luggage. Even there was no one there. What was this person planning to do? Hey, are you listening to me, big shot? Boss. Murong'an held the phone, not knowing what was going on over there. He wanted to raise his voice, but a voice came over. He didn't know if it was because it was winter, but it sounded cold. I'll accept the cooperation you mentioned just now. Murong'an really didn't expect it to be so easy. Although he had expected that mentioning a certain person's name would be useful. But according to his understanding, even if Yunhu was a person like this, he might not be poached over. But now, although Murong'an didn't know what was going on, from a certain point of view, it was like a pie falling from the sky to him. That's great, I'll immediately go and ask the people below to loosen the conditions for them. No need. Yunhu glanced at the empty luggage rack again. The conditions are the same as usual, but there's one more condition. Let Lin Feng come over personally. Don't tell him that I'm in charge. Murong'an understood tacitly, all right. Don't worry, I'm doing things right. Yunhu hung up the phone. He sat on the chair in the dormitory. It felt a little cold. He asked that person to wait for him. But that person took away his luggage. It was obvious that he had the intention to move out. Indeed, for people like them, they could have moved out a long time ago. They just had to apply to the professor. For third-year students, it was easier to operate this way. After all, the students of a university basically had their own set of logic when they were outside. Yunhu was the professor who refused to let him go. Otherwise, just like what Murong'an had said, he would be a CEO wherever he went. Besides, who didn't know this person's face? Most importantly, he didn't want to leave. Regarding this, Murong'an was also clear about it. Firstly, it was because of Supreme Alliance. Secondly, it was because he wanted to accompany someone as simply as possible. Yunhu had once said, if it wasn't for him, or if he wasn't by my side, I really don't know what kind of person I would become. When he said this, Yun, who was lying on the ground. The wine bottles at his feet were all toppled. Only he was sober. Probably only people familiar with him knew this. Yun, who wasn't a good-tempered person, and he wasn't a kind person. Especially when he was young. The Yun family was worried that he was too stubborn and would become a bad person when he grew up. Indeed, Yun, who seemed calm, but he could play with any kind of people. Old Master Yun had once said, if this child was raised well, he would be a political talent. If he wasn't raised well, he would become the biggest headache for the Yun family. If he hated someone, he would use the most vicious methods to deal with the other party. He was polite to people, but he never really put anyone in his heart. There was no absolute concept. Until Lin Feng appeared. At that time, Lin Feng was older than him. But because of his exquisite looks, Yun, who was especially patient with him the first time they met. Yun, who liked beautiful things, be it objects or people. But at that time, he thought he liked Lin Feng because he was beautiful. But the more he waited, the more he realized that wasn't the case. Even if his hands were dirty from playing basketball, he didn't care. Because he was disfigured from fighting, he just wanted to beat up the person who fought with him. The two of them just had to sit together and play Super Mario. When he was 5 years old, he didn't seem to know anything. How could it be calm when boys interacted? Naturally, it was a case of you kicking me once and I kicking you once. But the next day, he would still drink a glass of milk with him. He just found this person pleasing to the eye. The more he looked, the more pleasing to the eye. So pleasing that his mother said, it would be good if Lin Feng was a little girl. Look at how interesting it is when they are together, they even eat at the same time. Or when she was helping him put on gloves. Playing with Lin Feng again. You child, only Lin Feng can make up with you. Old Li has been crying for 3 days. Didn't he just break one of your game controllers? You don't want to play anymore. Lin Feng has broken so many of your controllers, but I've never seen you act like this. Old Li's boy wasn't ugly, he really looked like a doll. But he still felt that the yawning kid was the cutest. Especially the way he protected him. It was unforgettable. But now, he didn't seem to be protecting him anymore. He even wanted to move out. Yun, who sat there, unsure if he was smiling or something. The corners of his lips were pressed down and he looked lonely from afar, on the other side. Mother Lin was surprised to see Lin Feng return home. Why are you back at this hour? Why did you bring so many things? I don't have class tomorrow. Lin Feng replied vaguely. I have a project to work on. This place is close to the company, so I came back first. I'll talk to the professor. Mother Lin looked at him. Son, even though I think it's fine, you still have to take care of the school. I know. Lin Feng placed his luggage. Mama Lin glanced outside again. Are you alone? Lin Feng removed his scarf. Mother Lin arched a brow. Where's who? Isn't he in the same dorm as you? The two of you are so old, could it be that you had some sort of conflict? No, Empress Dowager. Lin Feng was helpless. Don't keep thinking about the plot in your head. Why would I fight with him? Mother Lin nodded. Indeed, who has a good temper? If you fight with him, no one will play with you in the future. Lin Feng. Who exactly is your biological son? Mother Lin asked. Then tell me, since you didn't fight, why did you come back alone? If I remember correctly, who should be in school now? Chapter 1397. Mother Lin noticed that Lin Feng's condition wasn't right today. She had thought that he was really tired because he had to run to school and the company. Plus, the competition had just ended. Her son probably wanted to rest, so she didn't ask further. Lin Feng carried his luggage and threw himself onto the bed without tidying up his clothes. Before this, the Lin family had already moved out of the military courtyard. Their neighbor was no longer the Yun family. It was probably because of the gap that had always existed. That was why it was like this now. Fortunately, the competition was over. However, there was another meaning to the end of the competition. Even the interaction between the two of them was about to come to an end. In the past, they could still be connected through the competition. What could they rely on in the future? In the adult world, there had to be something. If they had met later on, perhaps the gap wouldn't have been so huge. But it was because they had grown up together. Lin Feng closed his eyes. However, it was too late to think about this. He had to maintain a suitable distance. Even if they met in the future, it would be at the club. Mother Lin glanced at the room outside the door. He fell asleep so quickly. It was probably because Lin Feng didn't have much to do. Hence, most of the time, no one would describe him as meticulous. After the competition, everyone's life was different. Shui Yao Yao was the same. She stood under the shower, wanting to wash away the scent on her body. But she realized that once something was imprinted on her, it was hard to get rid of it. Fortunately, it wasn't too late. She was basically used to it now. After living for a long time, one would get used to it. For example, she could calmly stand in front of him and put on her clothes one by one. If it was in the past, she wouldn't have dared to think about it. Her appointment with him was coming to an end. When she entered university, everything would stop. At that time, there wouldn't be so many messy things. Shui Yao Yao put on the long down jacket. She still wasn't that eye-catching. But it could be seen. Compared to before, the down jacket was a whole circle bigger. Jiang Zuo was half naked, his back leaning lazily against the headboard. His slender fingers held a cigarette. His expression couldn't be seen from this angle. But he could see her clearly. She had changed so much since he knew her. At that time, he had never even thought that she would lose weight one day. Furthermore, he had lost so much weight. Inexplicably, Jiang Zuo felt frustrated. Especially when he saw that she was still so empty after putting on the down jacket, he remembered that she only ate an apple for lunch. Was there a need for such a thing? After seeing that back view, Jiang Zuo pressed the cigarette butt into the ashtray, a faint smile in his voice. Do you intend to be like this forever? Shui Yao Yao stopped and turned around to look at him. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Thinness is beauty. Jiang Zuo was a person that others couldn't see through. It was true in the past, and it was even more so now. Shui Yao Yao's expression was indifferent. She didn't seem to be targeting him. They seemed to be like this. They couldn't quarrel. When they saw each other, they were intimate. After the intimacy, they returned to their respective homes. There would even be a scene of siblings being courteous at the dinner table the next day. Recently, even his mother had become a lot happier. The atmosphere of the Jiang family had never been better. Chapter 1398. Oh no. Shui Yao Yao put on the hood of her down jacket. I'm leaving first, wait for half an hour before you leave. It's safe this way and Uncle Jiang won't think too much. Jiang Zuo laughed, but there was no warmth in his eyes. You're different from before. You're really thoughtful now. Shui Yao Yao didn't study the meaning of his smile. She took the things. Be careful. The Jiang family needed them to be harmonious. This way, her mother's life would be much better. In reality, she didn't want to continue like this. After all, in some people's eyes, they would always be basking in the glory of the Jiang family. Shui Yaoyao didn't deny this. But she didn't play sports. Shui Yaoyao had heard the comments of people in his circle. Play sports. She's still playing at this age, girls playing esports. Like the female casters. The last sentence was always a little flirtatious. In the entertainment empire, the Jiang family held many business gatherings. Jiang Zhe didn't know why, but he suddenly figured it out. Shui Yaoyao had always understood that Uncle Jiang marrying her mother was just nostalgia. In his heart, he still liked the woman who had a similar voice and appearance to Jiang Zhe. Jiang Zhe had a good temper and Uncle Jiang was happy all day. Even such business gatherings were mostly controlled by Jiang Zhe. The people who came seemed to know her and her mother's identity. There was no disrespect. There was no respect. Of course, there were still some gossip. The daughters he knew, her classmates, would always say a few words when they saw her. Most of them were to wake her up, not to have wishful thinking and not to think that she could do anything just because she was close. Shui Yaoyao didn't speak. If she had a choice, she wouldn't want to return to the Jiang family. Compared to these occasions, she would rather stay in Uncle Yin's internet cafe. There was cocoa, feng shang, and Uncle Yin's various instant noodles. It was a warmth that wasn't present in the Jiang family. Very few people cared about her studies. Other than Coco, who would nod her head and say, "Really, why is it so difficult? Are all the questions in the country so difficult? My head is about to explode." As a young master who grew up overseas, he wasn't used to the lessons in the country. Because of this, Coco even called his captain and asked pitifully if he could tutor him. As the student representative of a university, the captain had never been weak in science. "I only tutor my girlfriend." Almighty Qin's words completely froze Coco. Even now, Shui Yaoyao found the scene hilarious. Because it was rare that Almighty Qin didn't hang up the phone. He added, "Also, don't always call to disturb my relationship. Can't you guys solve this kind of small matter yourselves?" After Coco was hung up on, he posted on Weibo, "Captain, have you ever considered the feelings of us single dogs? Why is the question so difficult?" Many people were comforting her at the foot of the stairs. But what was even more heart-wrenching was that most of the fans were asking, "How did you show off? Tell us about it." Coco finally caught him, and he started to complain about his captain's usual behavior. Because it was Weibo. Bo Jiu would come to take a look as well. Chapter 1399. He said he's only tutoring his girlfriend and told me not to disturb his relationship with such a small matter. What? From the punctuation. Bo Jiu could tell how Coco was feeling. She didn't bother reading the comments. Instead, she glanced sideways at the Almighty beside her. He must have noticed her gaze. Qin Mo's hand paused at the red light. "What is it?" "Nothing." As a domineering CEO, she shouldn't expose the Almighty's intentions in front of others. After all, the Almighty could be shy. Once again, little Blackie understood his master's thoughts. He couldn't help shaking. It was puzzled. The devil had so many cars, but he didn't drive them. Why did he choose it? As a world-class smart sports car, little Blackie needed a companion to have a good chat with. Ever since it came to China, it realized a benefit. As long as it went online to complain, there would be people who would complain along with it. That was a good point. Little Blackie had already thought it through. Once they reached the destination, it would secretly log onto its own network and share its master's daily life with the netizens. Seriously, don't underestimate its account. A lot of people were already paying attention to the post it posted. Some were even asking if it had a follow-up post. "Are you hungry?" Qin Mo stopped the car. The reason he asked was because she was whistling restlessly again. Bojo smiled. A little, I'll get some. This was a good spot. There was a Burger King next door. Bojo wore a mask. She relied on her long legs and didn't take a detour. Instead, she used the stairs that were half the height of a human to climb over. Chi Nemo frowned when he saw her from the car. But her actions were indeed handsome. The black coat carried the wind as it fell. The few girls who had just come out of the Burger King were staring at the youngster walking towards them. Long legs, slim waist, and silver hair with a mask. They couldn't help trying to guess her identity. Their first thought was that she was an internet celebrity. But she didn't look like one. After she entered, she took out her wallet and didn't remove her mask the entire time. Instead, she bought a bunch of things. From his voice, they couldn't tell which streamer he was. It's such a pity that such a big brother doesn't dabble in the internet. The girls still wanted to find some clues. The youngster had already bought the good stuff. With a takeaway paper bag in one hand and a cup of unsweetened coffee in the other, he walked over. They still couldn't tell who it was. She just felt that her side profile was enough to make one's imagination run wild. What would happen if he took off his mask? Bojo noticed that someone was looking at her. She didn't avoid it, her eyes curved into a smile. In an instant. Then, he heard an "aww" sound behind him. Someone also took a photo and posted it on Weibo. Today, I saw a young man with silver hair and a black mask. He climbed the stairs to buy a burger. Although I didn't see his face, I felt that he was very handsome. The words "black mask" and "silver hair" quickly caught everyone's attention. After all, he had left a message with Coco. Now that he saw the key words appear, he couldn't help but smile. Many people's first reaction was, "Am I thinking too much? Why does this back view resemble my big spade so much?" Definitely. In the game, it's normal to climb over stairs to buy a burger in real life. Ah. The more I look at him, the more he looks like my Almighty Z. Almighty Z. Who was that? The girl who posted the photo didn't play games, so she didn't know anything about esports. But that was it. Strangely, the number of shares on her Weibo suddenly increased to a frightening level. Many people were at her, asking for her coordinates. Of course, there were also sober ones. I just came back from that place. I'm so sad, I feel like I've missed my big spade. It's probably too late to go over now. Am I the only one who noticed that Big Spade was holding a cup of coffee besides the Coke? He must have bought it for Almighty Chin. He must have bought it for Almighty Chin +1. Almighty Chin always lets his girlfriend buy things while he stays in the car. Let his girlfriend take revenge for him. Let his girlfriend fly him. Facepalm, I don't want to say anything about Almighty Chin's relationship. As a senior Chin fan, I just want to say, Big Spade, you can't return it. The fans' worries didn't come true. After all, what kind of person was young Master Chin? How could he give someone the chance to return him? He asked someone to get out of the car to buy things, more or less because his phone kept ringing. And the caller wasn't anyone else, it was his mother, Movie Queenin. It wasn't just the phone. There were many WeChat messages. Why isn't your household registration book in the family? I received a call from Countrywide today, saying that they want to have a marriage alliance with our family. I asked your father, and you actually agreed. You actually agreed, Chin Mo. Let me tell you, if you dare to abandon my Joe, you're finished, let me tell you. Movie Queenin had always been elegant, but no matter how elegant she was, when her son didn't even reply to her messages, the anger in her heart rose layer by layer. This cold boy, was he courting death? Her manager was trembling at the side, reminding her softly, there's media, there's media. How could she still care about the media at this time? She took a deep breath, her beauty in full swing. Continue to call him. The manager was also from a branch of the Chin group, what else could he say? That was Boss Chin. In the past, he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Now, under movie Queen Anne's instructions, he had already called him no less than 3 times. Why did Boss Chin knock off normally today? As his subordinates, it was getting more and more surreal. Boss Chin might be busy. The manager maintained his smile, finding an excuse. He was afraid that calling a 4th time would disrupt his boss's date. After all, he had personally seen his boss leave with Miss Jo. His expression was indescribable. Even though he was smiling, there wasn't a hint of a smile in his eyes. Not only that, but the most important thing was that he had specifically sent a message to them to inform them. In the future, he would remove some of the red tape in the company. For example, gifts, he hoped that there wouldn't be any more. 23333, he was obviously jealous. Movie Queen Anne didn't know what had happened before, but she had to clarify what a marriage alliance was. The other party was a family with ancient royal blood. Chapter 1400. Movie Queen Anne thought about it. Just then, the phone in her hand rang. The caller ID showed that it was the cold kid from her family who never picked up her calls. Movie Queen Anne raised her own son and was very familiar with his ways. She didn't appear to be in a hurry. Instead, she prepared to ask him slowly, "What do you intend to do?" "Madam Anne, I don't understand you." Chin Mo looked through the car window, his eyes landing on a figure not far away under the light. Just that one sentence. The elegant Movie Queen Anne adjusted her shawl. "Don't feign ignorance. Your grandfather said that someone came for a social gathering and you agreed." Chin Mo was nonchalant, calculating the time a certain someone would be back. MMH, which family's son was like this? Just an MMH. Movie Queen Anne really wanted to call her husband. Chin Mo seemed to have guessed his mother's thoughts. "Before you complain to my dad, you can ask grandfather which family is the one hosting the event." "Why didn't I ask?" "He said it was an ethnic Chinese who left China before the founding of the country. He has an ancient noble bloodline from country Y." The more Movie Queen Anne spoke, the more her imagination ran wild. "You bunch of capitalists, socializing for the sake of profits." Chin Mo knew that his mother had shifted her resentment towards his father onto him. "You didn't investigate carefully. You can ask grandfather and you will know why I agreed." Movie Queen Anne narrowed her eyes, changing the topic immediately. "Why don't we have your household register at home?" "I gave it to your little male almighty," Chin Mo said casually. Movie Queen Anne thought for a moment, going straight to the point. "What does giving the household register have to do with the socialization?" "Your little male almighty needs a hint before he acts." Chin Mo didn't deny it, revealing more information. Movie Queen Anne felt that there was a trap behind it. "Are you trying to trick Joe again?" "Madam Anne, watch your words, we are mutually in love." Chin Mo glanced out of the car window, his long fingers tapping on the steering wheel. "All right, she is coming back soon. You can ask about the socialization. Also, Ms. Anne, I don't mind if you become a fan of your little Prince Charming, but don't be too ostentatious. For example, don't show up at the gift-giving events that are organized. You know your own influence. If you show up, the attention will be too much." Movie Queen Anne was indignant. "You make it sound as though I'm troubling you. I'm helping my male idol gain popularity. In the future, the Chin Group will create a few more sales channels for anti-fans like you. You can invest your money in your little almighty," Chin Mo said casually. Movie Queen Anne tilted her head and glanced at her manager. "Your boss Chin even wants to earn money from me, his mother." "Goddess, the media, the media." Chin Guan's agent broke out in a cold sweat. He had never seen anyone with more personality than Boss Chin. Chin Mo returned to the original topic. Don't call again, it's better not to let her know about this. I'm still waiting for her to marry your son. Movie Queenin, the agent didn't know what to say anymore. He just wanted to cover his face. He really didn't expect Boss Chin to be such a person. After Movie Queenin hung up the phone, she was extremely happy. When the corners of her lips curved up, she was incomparably beautiful. My cold little boy finally got it, so that's what happened. The agent exclaimed in surprise. He wanted to ask Movie Queenin, wait a moment. Didn't you hear what Boss Chin said about waiting for her to marry him? To put it simply, he was going to marry her. The sole heir of the Chin group. He was chased by countless fans. The most popular, most valuable, most profitable, and most good-looking almighty Chin. He was going to marry someone. Marry someone. The agent felt that he needed some time alone. Really, in the days to come. Boss Chin was going to marry someone else. Who was going to manage the Chin group? And the business circle, the internet, the media, the agent could almost predict such news. What kind of explosive consequences it would cause. He still wanted to ask Boss Chin how he could say something like, waiting to marry, so naturally. From Movie Queen Anne's words, it seemed like he had set a trap for him. Shameless, he was really shameless. As a top smart sports car, Little Blackie also wanted to say the same thing. He had been listening to the entire call from the devil. No wonder he had sent his master his household register. It was a premeditated plan. His master had actually thought that the other party was shy. Little Blackie really didn't know what to say. The scariest thing was that the devil could even see through the car's thoughts. The first thing he said after hanging up was, I guess I have to erase your data. Little Blackie watched as his slender fingers started to tap on the screen. He couldn't help hugging his chubby body. With my loyalty to Master, I won't say anything if Master doesn't ask. Oh. Chin Mo arched a brow. That's really loyal. It's fine if you don't say anything. She's here. Little Blackie immediately shut up. The moment Bojo stepped into the car, she felt that the atmosphere inside was a little strange. But very quickly, she was tempted by the Almighty's next move. His fingers caressed her face, a smile on his face. The Almighty had never smiled so gently before. Are you cold? Chin Mo was really trying to warm her face. Bojo wasn't that arrogant. She removed half of her mask, revealing her handsome face. I'm not cold, my body is cold. Don't hug me. The colder you are, the more I want to hug you. Chin Mo caressed her head. With that, Bojo threw the strange atmosphere to the back of her mind. Besides, Chin Mo didn't start the car immediately. Instead, he opened a hamburger and fed her while letting her drink the cola. From time to time, he would laugh softly. When he laughed, even the moonlight outside would pale in comparison. Xiao He watched helplessly as its master fell into the path of the other party's seduction. The screen flickered twice. He had a premonition. His future days would be like this forever. Little Blackie realized it. The devil was really good at fighting for attention. He didn't just do what he wanted. Another point was that whatever its owner liked, it would come up with its own set. Otherwise, until now, his master would never have thought that he was shy. Just a moment ago, his master had leaned over to kiss him. He used a chicken wing to block his master's mouth. Then he smiled and landed on his master's forehead. Eat properly. A little vixen playing hard to get. No wonder his master, who was so smart, fell into his hands. This devil. Little Blackie hadn't finished complaining. He glanced at the rearview mirror again. That was terrifying. Nemo retracted his gaze when he saw that the car was obedient. He used a tissue to wipe the corner of her mouth. No matter how he looked at her, she was still the most pleasing to the eye. Bojo didn't know that she had understood the Almighty's point without doing anything. She was kissed again. She was elated. There was something else she was happy about. She had received a message when she was buying the hamburger. Grandfather Butler had sent her the message. The content was simple. Everything is ready. I'm now proposing marriage to the In family. Proposing marriage. Bojo realized that she loved hearing this word. Once Grandfather Butler was done, she could start on her side. Nemo didn't know what she was smiling about. There was obviously a mischievous smile on her face. On the other hand, Grandfather Butler was rather formal. A tuxedo was a must and he had brought along his most sincere cooperation. Everyone knew that Old Master and didn't meet people casually. The In family was different from the Chin family. All their business was overseas and they had been doing business for a long time. People often said that wealth didn't last 3 generations, but this had never happened in the In family. Now, it was movie queen and Old Master and had tried to stop her when she wanted to enter the entertainment industry. But because of that kid from the Chin family, Old Master and had relented. After all, that person had said that no matter what, someone would inherit the In family's business. To say that this point had really been achieved. Especially his grandson, who had been outstanding since he was young. Many people wanted to get to know him. Most of them were socialites. Both domestically and overseas. But Old Master and knew better than anyone else. That kid had always had someone in his heart. It was also because of that person that Old Master and had never asked about his grandson's marriage. Because he knew better than anyone else how long his little grandson had waited outside the door with the amulet when he had moved back from overseas. Honestly speaking, that was the first time he had seen his grandson in such a vulnerable state. His mother had been worried that his grandson didn't want to return. In reality, it wasn't just that he didn't want to return. It was that his little friend had suddenly disappeared. That was also the first time he had heard his grandson ask such an innocent question. At that time, his grandson had been really young. No matter how young he had been, he had only reached his waist. He had raised his exquisite little face. "Grandfather, do you think she will come back?" Old Master and had been in the business world for many years. With one look, he could tell that the family next door wouldn't be coming back. Everything had been moved away. It was as though she had never lived here before. The connection had been cut off so suddenly. Something must have happened. Old Master and knew it clearly. But he still told his equally rational grandson a small lie. She likes you, so she will definitely come back. But I quarreled with her. The little grandson was like a little prince. He stood under the moonlight, still wearing that little suit. When he pouted, his eyes were a little red. She is so stupid, she doesn't even know how to use the blanket at night. She always likes to climb over the wall. When she plays games, she doesn't care about anything else. She doesn't even know how to roll up her sleeves when she brushes her teeth. At that moment, Old Master and finally understood. The child next door. What exactly did she mean to his grandson? That grandson of his was very cold to everyone. He had never liked to talk since he was young. But he had said so much in one go. With every sentence he said, the emotions in his eyes deepened. Old Master and couldn't bear to do that. But the Bow family had a special identity and many things couldn't be controlled. Originally, at the start, he had thought that the child would forget after a month. But looking at his grandson who wasn't even willing to eat, Old Master and had been really anxious. It was impossible to contact the Bow family. Hence, he had brought his grandson back to the country. He wanted to leave that place with memories. It would definitely be better for his grandson. But still, there was nothing. At that time, his grandson seemed to have been completely plated. He had become normal. Perhaps it was obvious that the gap between him and his peers was getting bigger and bigger. Very few people had seen him smile again. His personality became more and more indifferent. He didn't even have a little willfulness anymore. Old Masquerade had always felt guilty about this. If he hadn't brought his grandson overseas, this situation wouldn't have happened. Just like that, 1 year passed. 2 years passed. Old Masquerade had thought that time was enough. When people came to befriend him, he would see if there were any cute children of the same age. That way, his grandson might get better. But very quickly, he also realized that no matter how cute the children were, his grandchildren were all the same. He didn't have those people in his eyes. Except for those 2 or 3 of his good buddies. When little girls came, he wouldn't even lift his eyes. At that time, there were tomboys who liked to climb over the wall. The girls raised in the military compound were more or less tougher than the girls outside. But his grandson was still indifferent. Maybe he thought he was indifferent. Grandpa clearly remembered what his grandson had said before he went to bed that day. "Grandpa, don't worry. She never climbs over the wall like this. I'm always worried that she'll fall off the wall, but she doesn't worry and doesn't look at anyone. You said that she likes me so much, so she'll definitely come back. I'm still waiting." Old Masquerade had never thought that a boy who wasn't even 10 years old would say such a thing. He didn't sleep for the entire night. When he woke up the next day, during breakfast, he treated his grandson the way he would treat an adult. Because old Masquerade knew that he couldn't treat his grandson, who had a heaven-defying IQ and EQ, like a child. Many things are complicated. Sometimes, our wishes might not come true. You and Joe are too young. If she doesn't come back, you can't keep waiting, right? He looked up from the dining table. His little face didn't have any edges yet, but he vaguely looked like a man. "If she doesn't come back, I'll look for her. It's not a big deal. If I can't find her in a year, I'll look for her for 2 years. If I can't find her in 2 years, I'll look for her for 3 years. After a long time, I will find her. If I really can't find her, I'll stand in the most dazzling place for her to see. I taught her the Chinese characters, she can't just eat them." Old Masquerade didn't say, "What if she forgot about you?" But what happened next was beyond his expectations. It wasn't that she forgot about him. It was that his grandson forgot about the person he had been looking for. Every time old Masquerade thought of this, his heart would feel terrible. He couldn't help but feel terrible. He forgot about the person he liked so much. How would his grandson feel? This thought made him unable to sleep. Now, he actually saw a certain symbol again. Chapter 1401. 3 years after the Beau family had moved away. They had met before. He was a qualified butler. He was definitely first class in terms of etiquette. The old man with foreign blood took off the gentleman's hat on his head. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit and bowed in a standard manner. "Mr. N, we meet again after so many years. You are still as elegant as before. Eric." Old Masquerade could almost call out his name at a glance. The assistant standing at the side had never seen his chairman like this. It was obvious that old Masquerade was emotional. His hand that was holding onto the dragon head walking stick was trembling. "You are still here. Not only am I still here, but young Lord is also here." He smiled very sincerely. One could see the feelings in it. It was as if they had met good friends. The assistant watched as the butler, who seemed to have walked out from the 19th century, walked to the chairman's side. "To be honest, Mr. N, I came this time to help our young lord with something." Although Grandfather Butler did not have Chinese blood, when he spoke in Mandarin, his pronunciation was very good. It was just a little exotic. When young Lord was young, she was taken care of by Mr. N's family, especially young Master Chin. Young Lord has always remembered how well he treated young Lord. Although I haven't seen it with my own eyes, ever since young Lord moved away, almost all the topics were about young Master Chin. Now that they have grown up and are together again, I wonder if Mr. N's words from back then still count. The two families are on good terms. You are the one who wants to propose. Previously, old Master N had only received a visit letter. He didn't know who the person was. He had wanted to ignore it. But when he thought about it, how could such a thing happen? Which family would mention the N family when proposing? They had mentioned his grandson. This was something that only a bear's heart and leopard's gall would do. But what old Master N didn't expect was that his grandson had actually agreed to it after hearing about it. Agreed. This wasn't like him at all. In the past, he had always been indifferent when someone brought up this matter. Not to mention agreeing. As smart as old Master N was, he immediately thought of something. His grandson knew the person who had written the visit letter. Otherwise, when he had received his grandson's call and asked him to come over to explain this matter, there wouldn't have been a smile in his voice. He still remembered his grandson's reaction when he heard the news. Really? He came to propose. Then he kept laughing. He kept laughing. It was so funny that even he, the grandfather, found it interesting. Hey, kid, are you feeling so good? At that time, his business partner was standing next to him and looking at him. Grandpa N's face was both helpless and happy. It had been a long time since he had seen his grandson like this. Just like a little kid. Yes, it's very beautiful. Grandfather, please agree for me. I'll be back soon. It was in the afternoon. It was already night time. The person who proposed marriage had arrived and revealed his true colors. However, old Master N could never have imagined that it would be an old acquaintance. At this moment, he immediately understood. No wonder his grandson was so happy. When he picked up the call, he could clearly hear the faint smile on the other end of the line. So it was her. In that case, Grandpa N seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes suddenly reddened. My grandson's memory has returned, right? Along with his childhood memories. Grandpa N had always been a person who could control his emotions, but at this moment, he seemed to be completely unable to control himself. It was an indescribable feeling. His throat was blocked, and he couldn't say a word. Grandpa N could only use a light cough to relieve himself. It's really great. Yes, it's great. Perhaps only those who knew what the two children had experienced would sigh like this. The old butler smiled. Our young master values young Master Chin too much. This time, she insisted on following young Master Chin when he went to carry out his mission. After bringing young Master Chin back with injuries, she even hid him at home. You know, she has always treated young Master Chin like a treasure. I don't know what kind of agreement she made with them, but she just wants to keep young Master Chin. When Grandpa N heard this, a myriad of thoughts ran through his mind. So it was that child who brought him back. His grandson's mission had always been confidential. Even his powerful and influential grandfather didn't know about it. But the higher the level, the more dangerous it was. He also had business friends in the Golden Triangle who told him roughly what had happened. Grandpa N couldn't sleep for many days. He was afraid that his grandson had been among the flames that had exploded in the river back then. Later, when he couldn't contact his grandson no matter what, there was news from that side. It said that Immerse's emotions were very unstable. With the hypnosis activated, there was a high chance that he would become an internationally wanted criminal. He was as smart as he was dangerous. When Grandpa heard the news, his heart was filled with bitterness. He was such an outstanding grandson. How could he fall to such a state? Was there no one who could trust him? At that time, Grandpa went to the Chin family. Only then did he realize that it wasn't that he didn't trust him, but that there was already a substantial danger. Other than his biological parents, who dared to stay by his side. On the other hand, the soldiers he had brought out were clamoring to see their boss. But it was to no avail. Someone who could find him, protect him, and still choose to stay by his side at such a time. He heard that it was the Fu family. How did it become? Grandpa frowned. Then the Fu family is, regarding this point. The old butler had already thought of an excuse before he came. After Master passed away, some organizations have been trying to destroy the balance in the hacker world or use hackers to do something. If young Lord disguised herself as a high school student, it would be easier for her to hide. She also knows that young Master Chin is in this city, so she came here. Grandpa had seen the photos of the youngster on the internet. The more he looked at them, the closer he felt. Now that he thought about it, it was no wonder that he felt so close. Since that's the case, I have no reason to disagree. Grandpa chuckled. But, Eric, you are wrong again. Here, the word marriage proposal is used by the man to the woman, not by the woman to the man. At this moment, the two of them had already sat down. The assistant handed them tea. The old butler took it elegantly and took a sip before saying, "Mr. I am not wrong." This was all mentioned by young Lord. She said that she used all her pocket money to buy her little Princess Chin. Grandpa also agreed at that time. She can't go back on her words now. Grandpa paused. He didn't expect that after so many years, he would hear this sentence again. This made his mind immediately recall the scene when they had just arrived overseas. Words for the readers. Chapter 1402. Los Angeles, located in southwestern California, was the second largest city in the United States, often referred to as the City of Angels. The city was located in the Mediterranean climate zone, with a mild climate. Generally speaking, it was dry all year round with little rain, only slightly more rain in winter. The sun was bright all year round, and there was very little chance that the temperature would be below freezing point, so the chance of seeing snow was very rare. But on this day, it actually snowed in the city. The snow at night was especially beautiful, wrapping the trees in silver makeup. Especially the pumpkin car lights in the fence. The old European-style buildings, with warm lights and Christmas trees everywhere. There were also some people in fur coats hurrying by. They rarely had black hair, but they all had different colors of hair, white skin, and high noses. They looked like the magicians described in Harry Potter. When the scenery became a fairy tale. The people in the scenery were even more mysterious. Under the street lights, a Huaxia Hongqi car was parked outside the fence. It was rare to see this brand of car in this place. The car looked a little old-fashioned. But those who knew cars would understand. The more old-fashioned a Hongqi car was, the more valuable it was. No, it was not just valuable. It was more of a status symbol. After all, in that era, to be able to drive a Hongqi car and drive it to Losh was probably the only one who came from Ange. The car door was opened by a professional butler. The butler was still wearing high-quality white gloves. He was a young man with blonde hair. Even his words were in English. "Sir, we're here." The person in the car did not get out quickly. Instead, he turned his head and pointed out the window to the little boy beside him. "This is where we will live from now on. How about it? Do you like it?" The little boy was wearing a white down jacket with a hood. There was a circle of silver-white fur at the collar. He wore a black mask on his face. His face could not be seen clearly, only his voice could be heard. It was a little childish and a little cold. Yes. Just one word. This was obviously a little too quiet for a 4 or 5-year-old boy. But the old man in the car seemed to be used to it. He reached out and rubbed the little boy's head. Then, shall we get out? Okay. The little boy followed the butler down the stairs. He did not let the butler help him with his luggage. Instead, he held the handle of the small suitcase with one hand. This was the first time the foreign butler had seen such a polite and mysterious child. He looked down and said, "Wow, this box is really cute." The little boy followed his gaze and looked over as well. The little panda's suitcase. It didn't match his overall temperament. But things like suitcases. It had never been something a little boy could control. After all, he had a very girlish mother. At this time, the old man laughed. He didn't look like a grandfather at all, except for the white hair on his temples. There's also an Asian kid living next door. Young master, you don't have to feel bored here. I'm sure you'll be able to get along well. The foreign butler thought the boy was being reserved. But when he looked sideways and saw the boy standing under the light, he immediately felt that he was thinking too much. He had never seen a boy like this. He obviously didn't have beautiful golden hair, but he was like a little prince. Standing there, he suddenly thought of a Huaxia poem he had learned, "Young master is like jade." His hair was like fine silk, so black that it was unforgettable. Although his face was covered, his eyes were very deep, as if they could sway the sky full of snow. Not to mention his long, dense, and slightly curly eyelashes, which gave people a sense of elegance. Ah! The foreign butler sighed again. Eastern children were really too good-looking. In fact, the foreign butler didn't know. He wasn't the only one who was addicted to this beauty. There was also someone who was studying her little keyboard. On this day, someone wanted to go out and play. But after thinking about it, there was nothing fun outside. It wasn't as fun as taking things apart. After all, she had beaten up all the children nearby. It was really not easy to find someone who was willing to play with her. For this, she was punished to stand. She agreed to stand. It was too boring to stand without anything in her hands. She simply hugged her little keyboard and stood obediently while admiring the rare snow scenery outside. There was even a tiger's tail behind her. She didn't expect that there was something more beautiful than the snow in this world. Could that person be Snow White? Someone searched for the fairy tale knowledge in his mind. He looked at his face. Then he looked at the little figure outside. It was Snow White and looked better than her, like a doll. The little suitcase was also very cute. That was a panda, right? It was something that only existed in Huaxia. She heard her father talk about it. It was really cute. Even the little princess's suitcase was cuter than hers. Thinking of this, someone looked at the small square in her hand in disdain. Well, it couldn't compare at all. The little boy standing in the snow still didn't know that he was being targeted and that the other party treated him as a princess. The word princess, to explain it in depth, was to treat him as a woman. The old man was probably afraid that the little boy wouldn't be used to it, so he took a step forward and patted his shoulder. Your parents will take you back soon. Andy also said that there is an Asian child next door. He is from Grandpa's friend's house. You don't need to be shy, that child will definitely get along well with you. Okay. When the little boy lowered his head, his eyelashes fell, forming a shadow. The old man couldn't understand his grandson's emotions. After all, this child had been like this since he was young. It was too worrisome. Go in. He was a little boy after all. He still let people hold his hand. But the little boy's eyes were still dark and calm. One hand was held by his grandfather, and the other hand was pulling the suitcase. They walked into the yard where they were about to start a new life. There was a strong American style everywhere. Ordinary children might like it very much. But the little boy was as usual and didn't show any expression of surprise. Even the pumpkin lantern car and cake in the yard didn't arouse his interest. The old man thought that it would be better to wait until tomorrow. He heard that the child next door was very lively. He hoped that he could inspire his grandson. Chapter 1403. Dad. This was the first time a certain someone called him. The man who was curled up on the sofa with a comic book covering his face ignored her. A certain someone ran over, stood still and flipped open the comic book. Mr. Bow, I need to tell you something. What is it? The man yawned lazily. He didn't look like a father at all. Did you break someone's glass or bully a child to tears? Little Bojo, I've told you many times, you have to be serious. I remember that you should be standing in front of the window and reflecting on your mistakes. I was thinking about it at first. Bojo had a serious expression. But my soul was hooked. The man smirked. His handsome face and black hair gave off an unruly vibe. I don't believe you. Dad, I think we should have a good talk. Bojo's eyes widened. Her little tiger's tail was still wagging. The man held his chin nonchalantly. Thank God, you finally have the awareness to have a good talk with me. What do you want to talk about? Talk about the children you beat up ever since you moved here. They are older than me, 3 years older. They aren't children, I'm the child. Bojo caressed her cat ears. It's a little embarrassing to talk about it. The man leaned back, his long and slender legs crossed. Embarrassed? You? Baby, you don't have this word. Tell me, what do you want? Bojo thought for a moment. She ran to the side and then ran back with a piggy bank in her hands. I want to buy something. You have to tell me about such a small matter. The man stood up, his fingers touching his daughter's piggy bank. Lord Joe, there seems to be the black card I gave you in there. When did his daughter become so generous? Bojo's little face was serious. It's expensive. Although she wasn't sure how much it was worth. But it looked quite expensive. Bojo glanced at the room next door. It was a pity that the little princess hadn't come out after entering. When the man heard this, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Perhaps it was because he was too handsome and had a kind of evil aura. Even though he was wearing a white shirt, he still gave off a beautiful impact. You can ask your mother about this. I can't decide the family's money. Don't forget, I'm a man who lives off a woman. Sometimes, little Bojo admired her father. In front of her mother, he was like a little puppy. When her mother wasn't around. In the next second, he seemed to have changed into a completely different person. Her father said that this was a little secret between the two of them and that she couldn't tell her mother. Mom earned money to support the family, and they were responsible for acting cute. Little Bojo had no objections. Anyway, her father was already an adult and could still act cute. She was a 5-year-old child, so it was not a big deal for her to wear tiger pajamas. When is Mom coming back today? When Bojo asked, she poked her face. It was a little itchy. Her father had never been good at taking care of children. When he heard his daughter's question, his handsome face was filled with resentment. 11 p.m. Let's cook ourselves. Come, Lord Joe, let's play a game. Whoever loses will have to cook instant noodles. How about that? I'm not guessing. Bojo hugged her wallet. I'm still addicted to beauty and can't extricate myself. I'm not in the mood to cook noodles. Chapter 1404. Little Bojo ignored her father. She wasn't in the mood to eat, especially when she heard that her mother wasn't coming back. In the end, the man stood up and stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. He glanced at the building outside and saw that the lights were on. He smiled. Lord Joe, dinner is settled. Your noodles taste terrible. I don't want to eat it. Bojo wasn't interested. The man stretched out his long legs and blocked his daughter's path. I'm not cooking. Bring the fruit platter on the table. We'll be guests next door and freeload. Next door. Bojo's eyes lit up when she heard this word. She quickly placed the fruits into the box. It wasn't right to give a fruit platter as a display gift. Even though her father was still smiling and emphasizing, "That's a friend of mine who came from China despite the age gap." Bojo was still angry. That was the little princess's house. How could she just freeload? Why are you walking by yourself? The man had quit smoking ever since he had his daughter. He was wearing a mask and a black down jacket. He was so young and handsome that people would think he was a big brother. Come over and carry me. Bojo held the piggy bank in one hand and the fruit platter in the other. She looked him up and down and said seriously, I want to walk by myself. I want to give the new neighbor a good impression of being sensible and obedient. Our Lord Joe has really grown up. The man smiled again and put his hand back into his pocket. He strolled behind the little tiger, giving off an indifferent feeling. The tall and short pair seemed to have walked out of a British comic. They didn't seem like people from real life. He could faintly hear the conversation between the two of them. When your mom comes back, don't tell her that we're freeloading next door. Why? Mom will be happy if she knows that someone from the same hometown is here. Why? I can't even cook instant noodles. Don't I care about my reputation? MH. Mr. Bo, it's embarrassing enough that you're living off a woman. You think I won't beat you up just because you're young and a girl? Yes. Bojo wagged her little tiger tail. Mr. Bo looked at the mop and raised one hand. His voice was lazy and his side profile was very handsome in the snow. TSK, little girl, your skin is a little thick. It's hereditary. Bojo turned with a serious expression. I inherited it from you. Mr. Bo didn't think much of it. That's why you're doing so well. All right, I'm going to press the doorbell. Please remember your persona. A conversation between father and daughter. He didn't expect to be overheard. The one who heard the conversation was the little boy who had brought the sled in from the side door. It was too cold outside, but he didn't wear a jacket. It was probably just a casual action. The little boy didn't like to eavesdrop. Rather than saying that he didn't like it, it would be more accurate to say that he didn't care what others said. Even so, he paused for a moment as he picked up the sled. After all, the conversation between the father and daughter was different from ordinary people. The little boy had never interacted with a father and daughter like this before, so he couldn't help but raise his eyes and glance at them. But it was only a matter of a glance. Very quickly, he closed the door. He looked at his grandfather, who wasn't far away, instructing the butler to prepare for tonight's dinner. He asked him how well he wanted the steak. The little boy was thinking about whether he should tell his grandfather that there were two people standing outside. In the next second, the doorbell rang. The doorbell rang. It was still snowing outside. Old Masterin was still wondering who would come at this time. The butler had already walked over. Sir, do you want to open the door? Old Masterin nodded. The butler walked over and pulled open the silver door handle with his slender fingers. Big snowflakes poured in along with the whistling north wind. An adult and a child appeared outside the door just like that. It was probably because the pajamas the little one was wearing were too eye-catching. Old Master saw a little tiger at first glance. Her pure black eyes were filled with intelligence as she looked inside. Her ears drooped down like a curly-eared cat. She was cute and handsome. Not to mention the slender man standing behind her. There was a faint smile on his lips. Against the moonlight, he didn't look old at all. He was as bright as the stars but with a hint of evil. "Mr. Andre, long time no see." Old Master N's eyes lit up. "Brother Bo, come in, come in." Little Bojo's eyes started to turn as she listened to the adults' greetings. Where was her little princess? Why didn't she see him? Just as she was thinking about this, Old Master N spoke. Old Master N said, "Mo, come over and take a look at your little friend." "Mo, This was the second mistake. The smart little Bojo thought that little princesses were usually very shy, so they were given a name like Mo, Hence, she was even more certain that the person she saw outside the window was a girl. Little Bojo was so confident that she confirmed the gender of her little princess. It wasn't a fantasy at all. When she saw the figure walking towards her again, she was even more confident. The other party was wearing small panda slippers but his pants were tight, sticking to his slender and straight calves. It was very pleasing to the eye. Moreover, he had taken off his jacket. The bright red sweater inside was like the maple leaves she had seen before. However, his skin was like the white snow that had just fallen outside. His eyes were as bright as the stars and his eyelashes were so long that even though they were so far away, the length of his pure black hair could still be seen clearly. He stood there, his black hair like splashed ink. The noble aura that came along with it reappeared in Bojo's eyes. The north wind blew again, responding to the bonfire inside the house and the Christmas tree outside the house. Snowflakes floated over and one of them landed on the boy's shoulder. He tilted his head and blew it gently before looking over politely. She didn't know why, but little Bojo felt that his gaze was too cold. However, this coldness didn't dampen little Bojo's enthusiasm. The fairy tale book said that there were many types of princesses. The one she met today definitely looked cold, but in reality, she was easily shy. She had to control herself later. She couldn't be too frivolous. She couldn't beat William like she did previously. She had to be patient with the little princess and speak in a gentle voice. Since she had brought her piggy bank back, she felt more confident. Anyway, she didn't want to scare him away. She had never felt that there was anyone who looked so good. The one in front of her. She wanted to bring him home as a pet. However, her dad had once said that if she saw something she liked, she had to buy it home. She couldn't take it for free. It was the same on the internet. Hence, little Bojo's first reaction when she saw the little princess was to hug her piggy bank. Chapter 1405. Ever since just now. This little customer had been staring at him. Mo glanced down from the stare and met with a pair of distinct black and white eyes. What made him pause slightly was that those eyes seemed to only have him in them. Under the light, he saw himself in her eyes. Her eyes were quite big. This was Mo's only thought. She didn't look like someone who had spoken so much just now. It seemed like she was pretending to be obedient now. He had never seen anyone pretending to be obedient like this. She looked at him unscrupulously. Mo wanted to take a step forward. The child first greeted his grandfather. "Hello, Grandpa." Then she ran in front of him and pushed the piggy bank in her hands forward. Her tiger tail was still wagging. "Momo, how much are you per kilo?" "I'll buy you." "Buy him?" How much was he per kilo? Chin Mo frowned uncontrollably. He looked at the smiling face in front of him and took a step back. He didn't know why, but he had a premonition that his nightmare was coming. On the other hand, Mr. Bo laughed mischievously. Master Joe, you're amazing. I was wondering what you were interested in. It turns out that you were interested in your new little friend. Momo is so cute. It's normal for me to be interested in you, little Bojo said. She turned her head over with a serious expression. Her ears moved. It's a little shy to talk about it. Momo, can you promise me that I will treat you very, very well? Cute. When he heard this adjective, Chin Mo's little face turned slightly cold. Did this fellow misunderstand something? Cute, ha ha ha. Grandpa laughed loudly. This is the first time I heard someone say that my Mo is cute. Little Bojo widened her clear eyes. Didn't anyone say that in the past? That's strange. A little princess like Momo would definitely be liked by many people. Little princess. Chin Mo couldn't help but speak. At that time, he was still young and his voice wasn't as threatening as it was now. It even had the childish voice of a 5-year-old. Even though it was cold, it wasn't as imposing as before. Grandpa was stunned for a moment before he laughed even louder. Even though he knew that his grandson was outstanding, this was the first time he was treated like a little girl by a little friend. The man had a rough idea of what his daughter had done. He laughed sinisterly. It seems like our Master Joe really likes Mo very. After little Bojo said this word, to show her seriousness, she looked straight at Chin Mo's face. Words for the readers, new book introduction. 3 years ago, the Supreme Alliance disintegrated. The gaming genius, Mo Bay, went into hiding. 3 years later, she disguised herself as a man and returned with her name hidden. She went from being spurned to ascending the altar again, causing the whole nation to be excited. He was handsome and had countless fans. Everyone in the esports circle knew him. When she first joined the team, he told her, behave yourself and don't have any improper thoughts. After her identity was exposed, he looked up from the table and stood up slowly. Do you want to abandon me after getting married in the game? MH. The voice beside her ears made her feel guilty. What else do you think I should do? Chapter 1406. Chin Mo told himself not to be calculative with someone younger than him. He took a deep breath, lifted his legs, and was about to walk to the dining table. Who knew that the person with the big eyes would suddenly pounce on him? Before Chin Mo could react, he was pushed to the ground by her. Her little tiger claws could be seen. She scratched her head in embarrassment. I'm sorry, Momo, I didn't expect you to be so weak. I'll control my strength next time and won't be so fierce. Who told you about controlling your strength and being weak? Him. This time, Chin Mo didn't even want to breathe. But this person was like a little heater, making him want to pull her collar and throw her out. But she was too young. Her eyes were so big that it was annoying. Get up. His tone was cold. Bojo tilted her head, her tiger tail wagging. Okay. She was very obedient. This made Old Master laugh even more heartily. But he couldn't be too enthusiastic. His grandson couldn't stand it. Old Master pulled the little tiger to the side. Come, Joe, sit down and eat something. With the beauty in front of her, Bojo had forgotten that she and her father were here for a free meal. But after Old Master An's words, she remembered the purpose of their visit. She wagged her tiger tail and sat down with Old Master An. Her father had once said that Chinese people got to know each other at the dining table. After the meal, Momo wouldn't be as shy as she was now. Chin Mo saw her round eyes staring at him. He tidied his clothes and sat down in front of the dining table according to basic etiquette. He thought that after the meal, he wouldn't have to see this little tiger that affected his emotions. But the moment he sat down, the little tiger used her two small hands to move the chair towards him. Then she sat back down. Let's be closer, we can have a private conversation. Qin Mo's side profile was cold. He was naturally arrogant, like a little prince. He didn't want to speak. Bojiu tilted her head. Momo, did I tell you that you're very pretty? You're the first. Every word you say makes me want to throw you out. Bojiu's eyes lit up. I have good taste. Qin Mo smirked. He had changed his mind. This little tiger really needed a beating. Yes, you have good taste. Qin Mo couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. He held the knife in his hand, and when he cut the steak, he used his strength subtly. On the surface, he looked noble and polite. Bojiu didn't realize what she was thinking and continued to drink the water happily. Mr. Bo, who saw everything, only felt that it was interesting. He didn't intend to expose her. Instead, he picked up the wine glass in his hand and shook it twice. His movements were casual and elegant, making him look like a character that only appeared in movies. He had only taken one bite of the steak. Then, the phone beside him rang. It was a nursery rhyme. Every time this nursery rhyme was heard, Mr. Bo would be busy. This time was no exception. But he wasn't in a hurry. After taking a look, he smiled and said to Old Masterin, Misterin, I have something urgent to attend to. I might need to trouble you to take care of my Lord Joe. Old Masterin smiled faintly. Don't mention it. Go and do what you need to do. Joe can get to know Mo better here. Thank you. The man stood up and wore his trench coat. He freed one hand and caressed Bojiu's head. His back view as he walked out was completely different from when he came. At this moment, he seemed to be able to blend perfectly into the night. Even his eyes had turned from lazy to cold like the wind. Not to mention the evil aura that surged out when he lowered his eyes. Bojiu watched him leave and then retracted her gaze. Unexpectedly, she was a little listless. This wasn't within Qin Mo's expectations. He realized that he didn't like the way the little tiger drooped her ears. Old Masterin noticed it too. He smiled and said, Joe, don't be restrained. After dinner, Mo will bring you upstairs to play. Can I? The little tiger perked up again. A pair of bright eyes turned to look at Qin Mo. Qin Mo paused and replied faintly, MMH. He was troubled because if he didn't agree, the little tiger would cry in front of him. Forget it. If that was the case, he might as well agree. Momo, you're such a good person. Bojiu reached out and wanted to hug him. Qin Mo frowned. His little face was cold. You better keep your tiger claws. Don't force me to change my mind. Bojiu looked at her hand and then at the little princess sitting beside her. She suddenly understood. Momo, I know that in China, men and women shouldn't touch each other and can't be too passionate. But don't worry, I'm a girl too. Hee, you're a girl and I'm not. There's no need to add. Qin Mo couldn't be bothered to talk to the little tiger anymore. He just wanted to finish his steak and go upstairs to read. At this point, the little tiger sitting beside him seemed to know her place. She didn't give him any more trouble. She sat at the side seriously and didn't need anyone to cut the steak for her. Even though it was a little difficult to cut the steak with her clothes on, she didn't say anything. The more Qin Mo looked at her, the more annoyed he felt. He reached out and took her plate. He moved the knife and fork. At such a young age, she already had good dining etiquette. Bojiu paused. When she looked at the little princess who was cutting the steak for her, the corners of her lips couldn't help but lift. The little princess looked good even when he was cutting the steak. He wasn't as rough as her at all. Chi Nemo moved his fingers. His voice was a little cold. "Don't look at me." "Oh." Bojo didn't look at him at first. But after a while, she couldn't help but turn her head. "Momo, if I save more money, can you sell yourself to me?" Chi Nemo placed his knife and fork down. He opened his eyes and glanced at her. "You better not ask me this question in the future. Is it because I don't have enough money?" Bojo hugged the piggy bank and shook it. Chi Nemo felt that it was childish to argue with an idiot. He pushed the tray in his hand forward and replied calmly, "MMH, he didn't know that his perfunctory nonchalance had become something that the other party cared about." "Then I'll save more money." When Bojo became serious, she didn't forget to scratch herself with her claws. Chi Nemo glanced at her face. Being a germaphobe, he couldn't help it. He reached out and pushed the hair beside her ear to the side so that he could clean his eyes. He told himself that today was the only day. Once today was over. Chapter 1407. Bojo didn't know what the little princess she liked was thinking. But he was even willing to cut the steak for her. Her little princess should have already accepted her. This was a good thing for Bojo. In the past, too many people were frightened by her rudeness. The little princess was good, she didn't care about this at all. Actually, Bojo probably couldn't understand what Chi Nemo was concerned about. The steak was delicious. It was much better than instant noodles. Bojo wore a small scarf as she ate. She had a carefree elegance that other children didn't have. Even though it was difficult to cut the steak, she still had manners when it came to the dining table. Especially when it came to waiting for the elders. It was the same as Chi Nemo. Both of them waited for Old Master and to eat first before they started eating. When they put down the knife and fork, the elders would put it down first. Because of this, Grandpa liked the little tiger in front of him very much. Moreover, the way she ate, her cheeks were puffed up, giving him a sense of accomplishment when he fed her. She was a completely different type from his grandson. Chi Nemo watched from the side as the person ate until her stomach was full. He calmly drank a mouthful of water. She was indeed here to freeload. This trip wasn't in vain. Bojo didn't know that the little princess had heard the conversation between her and her father. When she saw that he was full, she put down her knife and fork, hugged her little piggy bank, and followed. The tiger's tail was still wagging. Old Master watched this scene and felt gratified. His daughter was in the career stage and his son-in-law was in the military. It was indeed beneficial for his grandson to follow him out. But at the same time, he was always worried that his childhood would be incomplete. Now, it seemed like there was a little tiger accompanying him in a foreign country. Perhaps, it would more or less ease his mind. Even though his grandson had a look of resistance on his face. But resisting was better than not saying anything at all. But that little tiger was interesting. Why did she treat his grandson as a girl? Old Master laughed again. He was probably too happy. Even when he went to the study for a video conference, he asked the butler to open a bottle of red wine. On the other side, little Bojo was walking up the stairs. She took the opportunity to observe the surrounding terrain and instantly felt elated. Momo, our windows are facing each other. My room is opposite you. Chi Nemo glanced at her and said, Don't touch anything. You can eat the snacks on the table but don't disturb my reading. Under normal circumstances. According to the other party's personality. He was certain that he would not be able to meet these requirements. When he opened a book and read for half an hour, he was about to pour himself a glass of water. That person was still hugging his little piggy bank and sitting there quietly. His eyes were big, and he didn't eat the snacks on the table. After drinking the water, Chinemo was just about to start reading when a small heater came over to him. His fingers paused as he flipped through the book. He narrowed his eyes and turned his head to see the little tiger's sleepy expression. She probably realized that she had bumped into someone. Bojo suddenly woke up and shook her head. Momo, I'm a little tired. I'll go home and sleep first. I'll come and play with you tomorrow. As he spoke, he jumped off the chair. Even his steps were a little shaky. Chinemo glanced at the lights next door that hadn't been turned on. Then he looked at the back view of the little tiger in front of him. He frowned and then said, Mr. Bo isn't back yet. MH? Bojo didn't understand what he meant. Chinemo picked up the book in his hands. When the lights are turned on, I'll get the butler to send you back. There's a small sofa over there. Go and lie down for a while. Okay. Compared to going home to sleep, Bojo was more willing to stay where the little princess was. She was afraid that she would disturb the little princess's reading. But it was her nature. Before she fell asleep, she wanted to talk. Momo, what are you reading? Bojo moved her head over. Chinemo replied, Little Prince. After that, he didn't speak again. He left her on the sofa because she was too young. He didn't have any intention of befriending her. Bojo sensed his coldness as well. Her tail swayed and she started to doze off again. When Chinemo noticed her head leaning over for the second time, he frowned. He knew that with this little tiger around, he wouldn't be able to read at all. But at this moment, Grandpa pushed the door open and walked in. When he saw this scene, he was stunned. After all, his grandson had never been so close to any child before. Then he laughed softly. Joe, it's too late. Can you stay here tonight? Bojo perked up when she heard this. Okay. After a night's sleep, the little princess would get closer to her. Unlike now, when he was always cold and indifferent and a little prickly. Bojo lowered her head and looked at her little tiger's paws. Her excited expression was a stark contrast to the cold Chinemo sitting beside her. Chinemo didn't know what his grandfather was thinking. His grandfather should know that he didn't like to keep other children at home. But when he turned his head, the lights outside weren't turned on yet. The smell of milk on a certain little tiger was very strong. This meant that she was really small. Even if she was the same age as him. Girls and boys were also different. She shouldn't be that strong. Chinemo turned his head. He thought for a moment and resisted the urge to object. Everything was because she was still young. He couldn't let her carry a small piggy bank back. It was snowing outside. There wasn't a single person there. Anyway, it was just one night. Tomorrow, he would tell his grandfather. He didn't need any little friends. I'll get the butler to prepare a small guest room for our adorable Joe, Old Masterin said as he looked towards the door. Bojo shook her head. She was very serious. Don't trouble Grandpa and Momo and I will sleep in the same room. We are both girls and there is a small sofa here. When Chinemo heard this, he started to frown. That little face of his turned cold. What did she mean by both of them were girls? This idiot, couldn't she see clearly? Old Masterin couldn't help but smile. This was the first time he saw his grandson show so many expressions on the same day. Suddenly, he felt that this wasn't bad. His grandson had never slept in the same room with anyone before. He could give it a try. Okay. Old Masterin caressed the little tiger's head. Then you can squeeze with Emo. Chinemo didn't expect his grandfather to say this. He was about to reject. But just then, someone hugged his waist. Then, the little tiger smiled. 2 little tiger teeth were revealed. The mole at the corner of her eyes was at the corner of her eyes. She looked at him with big eyes. Then. Chapter 1408. The little Chin Mo froze. When the side of his face touched the softness, he even forgot to push the little tiger away. His nose was filled with the scent of milk and candy. His eyes slowly widened. He didn't seem to want to accept this scene. But he couldn't stop it. His fingers froze. Old Master and froze when he saw his grandson's expression. Then, he couldn't help but laugh. The little tiger was really daring, kissing him as soon as she came up. Speaking of which, this was the first time his grandson was kissed. It didn't count when he was born. But after he could remember, he hadn't been kissed by anyone else. After all, when they were in the courtyard, children of the same age felt that his grandson was too mature. He wouldn't do such an intimate action. After all, his grandson had been a clean freak since he was young. However, when Grandpa saw his grandson's shocked expression, he couldn't help but smile uncontrollably. The little tiger didn't know what she had done. She reached forward with her claws and hooked Chin Mo's ears. Momo, are you shy because I kissed you? Is that why your ears are so red? Don't be shy, we still have to sleep together later. Chin Mo didn't think much of it at first, but when she touched him, he realized that they were too close. He reached out and tugged her tail, his voice cold. Who wants to sleep with you? It was fine if this little tiger didn't know whether it was a man or a woman, but she kissed anyone she saw. Didn't she know what it meant to be reserved? Bojo blinked in confusion. Her little face started to sink, even her tiger ears drooped. If you don't welcome me, I'll go back and sleep. I'll look for you tomorrow. At first, Chin Mo didn't say anything. He watched as she hugged the piggy bank. Then, he looked at the falling snow and the dark night. Chin Mo tilted his face. I won't go back on my promise. Since grandfather said you can stay, you can stay. Really? Bojo's ears perked up again. She almost shook her tiger tail. You promised to sleep with me. Once again, Chin Mo told himself that everything was because she was still young. You'll sleep on the sofa and I'll sleep on the bed. We have no intention of sleeping together. Chin Mo corrected the little tiger who had only been here for 6 hours and had already messed up his rhythm of life. Don't talk nonsense and stay away from me. Maintain a 1-meter distance. 1 meter. Bojo placed the piggy bank down and gestured. She pouted, looking slightly listless. So far. Why? I can't even touch you. Chin Mo smirked. At such a young age, he had already developed his aura. Before asking me why, shouldn't you look at your own behavior first? Behavior? Little Bojo didn't understand. After thinking for a long time, she asked shyly, is it because I'm too strong? Chin Mo didn't want to speak. What did this have to do with strength? I know. The fairy tales say that princesses are all made of water. When I hug you in the future, I'll use less strength. After all, you're so small and weak. Who knows, I might hurt you. Little Bojo was rather serious when she said this. She even reflected on her actions in annoyance. She didn't know that at this moment, Chin Mo only had one thought in his mind. He wanted to pick her up and throw her out of the window. Princesses are all made of water. Small. Weak. Him. Chin Mo reached out and pinched her claws. He inhaled deeply. You better shut up now. Bojo heard this and replied happily, okay. Because of the word good, Chin Mo couldn't even finish his sentence. The mixed-blood handsome face with the aura of an angel turned even darker. He was still cold and dignified, but there was anger. Old Masquerade, who had been observing the interaction between the two little people, was really amused. He felt that this trip abroad was probably the right choice. After all, who would have imagined that his grandson would say so many words and make so many expressions in a day? He even suffered because of a little child. He was enduring something all the time, probably because the little tiger was too young. His grandson wouldn't be so calculative when compared to his younger self. But this wasn't entirely right. After all, when he was over there were people younger than him. They had seen him like this before. Perhaps it was because the little tiger in front of him hugged him too passionately. Even though he was watching from the side, he felt that he couldn't push away that kind of hug. It seemed like his grandson had met a little devil. Fortunately, the little devil was very obedient. She hugged her little piggy bank and followed behind his grandson. She didn't say anything when he told her not to. She even passed a glass of water to his grandson. She used her actions to express that she would take good care of him. Don't ask old Masquerade why he felt this way. It was because this was the expression the little tiger gave people. Why was it so cute? He really wanted to reach out and rub it. Especially the way she looked at his grandson with her big eyes. If he was his grandson, he would have rubbed it long ago. His grandson was good. He really made the little tiger stay away from him. Then, she turned to look at him. Old Masquerade couldn't help but laugh. He knew that his grandson was saying, "Grandfather, when are you going to watch the show?" He held the dragon head walking stick and shook it. "Grandfather has something to do. If you want to eat supper, let the butler cook for you. There is warm milk outside and a lot of snacks." Okay. After all, he hadn't grown up yet. He still had an obedient side. The little Chinemo took a step forward and said to old Masquerade, "Grandfather, good night." Old Masquerade wanted to continue watching, but considering his grandson's intelligence, he decided to let the two little people develop freely. But looking at his grandson, he seemed to only want to tolerate the little tiger for one night. Bojo followed Chinemo to bid goodnight to old Masquerade. Unlike the other girls who were soft and cute, she was a little fierce. "Momo, I didn't do it on purpose. Actually, it's good that you're short. It's okay for a girl to be short since you're so cute and pretty. But if you really want to grow taller, you can drink more milk. I'll give my cup to you as well." Grandpa nodded. "Momo, you're so cute and pretty. But if you really want to grow taller, you can drink more milk. I'll give my cup to you." "It's fine." Chinemo didn't control his strength again, snapping his favorite mimosa plant. Bojo lowered her head and looked at her toes, not knowing what to do. Chinemo inhaled deeply. After taking the glass of milk, he instantly felt a headache. Why did he have to worry about the little tiger when he was treated as a girl? If he was too cold, the little tiger would feel hurt. It was probably because her face was too deceiving. With this thought, Chinemo finished the milk and reached out to pinch her face. He didn't use much strength because the feeling was out of his expectations. It was tender and smooth like egg pudding. It was too soft and he couldn't bear to touch it. Chinemo tilted his head and retracted his hand. Forget it, it wasn't enough for one night anyway. Bojo watched as her little princess walked into the bathroom. Before leaving, the little princess touched her face. It must be because she was too likable. Even the little princess couldn't help but feel itchy. With this thought, little Bojo started to plan seriously how to make the little princess like her more. After all, it was too difficult to bring her home. The little princess was too troublesome. And she was easily shy. Bojo tilted her eyes. Her dad had never told her what to do if the other party was too shy. Chinemo, who was about to wash up, didn't know what the little tiger was thinking. After closing the door, he looked at himself in the mirror. His hand seemed to still feel the touch just now. Also, what was with the milk smell all over his body? It must be because she carried him out. Chin Mo squeezed out the toothpaste. His cold little face had a different expression again. The little tiger was a little bored waiting outside. In addition, she suddenly thought of a good way to quickly improve her relationship with the little princess. She bent down and placed the piggy bank on the sofa. Then, she ran to the drawer and took out a small scarf. In fact, when she saw this, Bojo sighed. The little princess was really clean. He was completely different from her. Her scarves had never been folded so neatly before. She just threw it casually. Because of this, her dad always made her reflect on herself. In the past, little Bojo always felt that her dad was deliberately looking for trouble. After all, that person always lost to her in rock paper scissors. William, who lived next door, was even more casual than her. Now, it seemed that she was too ignorant. Everything in the little princess's house was square and fragrant. There were also many books. Little Bojo compared and looked at herself. She felt that she was full of flaws. But she didn't intend to change. However, she had to pay more attention to her hygiene in the future. If not, the little princess would throw her out like trash. After little Bojo told herself this, she started to struggle with her little tiger pajamas. This set of pajamas was originally bought by her dad. He was in charge of acting cute for her mom. The claws, ears, and tail all needed help when she put on the pajamas. It took a lot of effort to take it off. A normal 5-year-old wouldn't be able to take it off. But we must believe that our little tiger Lord Joe is different. If she couldn't do it manually, she would use the rolling technique. She gritted her teeth and pulled, nimbly and handsomely escaping. She took the little scarf and prepared to give the little princess a surprise in the bathroom. Since they were going to sleep together. Of course, they had to shower together. That way, their intimacy would increase continuously. Bojo felt that she was too smart to think of such an idea. Before she entered, she didn't forget to give herself a thumbs up in the mirror. The little young Master Chin, who had already taken off his clothes, didn't notice the little tiger's thoughts outside the door. He thought that she was starting to doze off again since she didn't make a sound. He sat in the small bathtub that his grandfather had specially made for him. After lying down, he covered his forehead with a towel. His black hair was a little wet, making his red lips and white teeth appear even more prominent. Even his eyes were watery. No wonder little Bojo treated young Master Chin Mo as a girl. This appearance was really enough to put the moon and flowers to shame. This was probably related to Chin Mo's natural noble and immortal aura. But at this moment, he could still see that he was a boy. But he was still brought up since young. Not only did he do everything himself, but he was also very presentable. He reached out to get some shower gel. Just as he was about to apply it on his arms, the door opened with a creak. Little tiger, no, that's not right, he shouldn't call her little tiger anymore. Because that person wasn't wearing her pajamas. She was wearing a little white scarf and walking towards him. Chin Mo suddenly had a very bad feeling. He looked at the little person who shouldn't be here, his little brows furrowing bit by bit. Suddenly, Chin Mo had a very bad feeling. He looked at the little person who shouldn't be here, his little brows furrowing bit by bit. Momo, let's take a bath together. I'll help you wash up. Bojo took off her scarf. She was wearing a pair of tiger underpants, her snow-white body like a ball. She was about to enter the bathtub. Chin Mo's upbringing had taught him that there was a difference between men and women since he could remember. His IQ was twice that of his peers, not to mention his psychological state. Being precocious didn't just mean that he was out of line with his peers, it also meant that he had never been so close to anyone before. Now that someone was about to enter, his entire body froze once again. "Don't come in." In a moment of desperation, Chin-mo could only throw out this sentence. Bojo looked at his red ears, a look of realization on her face. She then said considerately, "Momo, you're shy again. Didn't I say just now that we're both girls? Even though I'm taller than you and my hair is shorter than yours, I'm really a girl. If you don't believe me, come closer, you can take a closer look." Little, old, tiger. Chin-mo looked at the leg that wasn't retracting. Instead, it was moving closer. He completely regretted his soft-heartedness just now. Bojo didn't realize this and corrected him seriously. "Momo, I'm not called Little Tiger, I'm called Bojo. Bo as in Bojo and Jo as in Bojo. It's very handsome." In such a situation, it was hard to remember a person's name. Chin-mo's breath was slightly suppressed. "Bo, little Jo, try to come closer." "I won't go closer. I'll just sit beside you. As for you, Momo, if you continue to hide, your neck will be submerged and you will drink dirty water. There are too many bubbles in the water and your stomach will hurt. Actually, you don't have to be so reserved. I know you aren't used to it after coming overseas. My dad said that people in our country are very reserved. Actually, I'm the same." Oh. He really couldn't tell how the person in front of him was reserved. Fortunately, there was milk in the tub. Otherwise, she would have seen everything about him. Chin-mo told himself not to be calculative with an idiot. Chapter 1409. Once again, Chin-mo froze. This time, both his hands and legs froze. He had never seen such an expression on his face before. However, the one who had done the deed didn't seem to care. She leaned back and splashed the water in the bathtub on herself. Her fair and tender little face was slightly red from the steam. She looked soft and satisfied. "Momo, the water in your bathtub smells so good. Is it because you put milk in it? No wonder you're so white. It's because of the milk bath. Princesses are different. It's comfortable to take a bath like this, right?" Chin-mo suppressed the urge to ask her what she meant by being a princess. He just wanted to stay away from her. It was best if they didn't have any more contact. Bojo could see his resistance. She didn't understand. "Momo, there has to be a limit to your shyness. I'm already so far away from you. You'll fall if you take another step back." With that, she started to move. Chin-mo opened his mouth. Even though his voice wasn't as threatening as when he grew up, it was still a warning. "Don't come over." Bojo raised her hands. Her meaning was clear. She would listen to whatever he said. Don't be so resistant. Chin-mo's current state of mind was obvious. He took a step back. He shouldn't have been soft-hearted towards this little tiger. If he was given another chance, he would definitely throw her out. He wouldn't care if her house was dark or not. Bojo didn't know what the pet she wanted to bring home was thinking. Anyway, she just had to think of a way to increase their intimacy. Bojo tilted her head. She thought about it seriously and smiled sweetly. "Momo, let me help you wipe your back. I'm good at it." "It's fine," Chin-mo rejected in the next second. This was the first time Bojo met such an unapproachable little kid. Sigh, he was pretty. Bojo told herself. She splashed some water on herself. That wasn't all. In order to make herself look as clean as the little princess, she turned her body and placed some shower gel in her palms. Children of this age wouldn't even bathe themselves very neatly. Bojo was the same. She was slightly clumsy. She wiped her arms and legs as though she had completed a great project. From start to end, Chin-mo could only watch from the side. Furthermore, he was using his peripheral vision. In order to avoid seeing things that they shouldn't see, he had already intentionally shifted his gaze elsewhere. Now, the little tiger had settled down. But he couldn't stay here forever. Chin-mo couldn't get up. Once he did, he would be in an awkward situation. No matter how mature young Master Chin was, he was still a child. In this aspect, he cared a lot. However, there was one thing about young Master Chin: he was raised from a young age. No matter what kind of situation they were in, he was able to maintain his nobility and was not anxious or impatient. It seemed like he could only wait for this stupid little tiger to finish bathing before he could get up and go out. This was the only solution he could think of. Otherwise, he couldn't just stand up and let everyone see his naked body. However, he was really an idiot. At this point, she couldn't even tell if he was a man or a woman. He only knew how to play with water. Chapter 14:10. Momo, I'm done. You should be done too, right? Little Bojo twisted the scarf in her hand. Do you want me to wipe your hair before we head out together? Chin-mo took a deep breath. He knew that she wouldn't be content with her actions. No need. You can leave first. Bojo glanced over at his face, which was already covered in a thin layer of sweat due to the heat. At this moment, Chin-mo was extremely good-looking. Her thin lips were like flower petals. Her facial features were as delicate as a doll's. Her black hair was also wet from the water and stuck softly to the back of her ears. Bojo's heart itched. He really wanted to hug her. No, he had to restrain himself. It would be bad if he scared the little princess. However, the little princess did not seem to be in the right state. He looked as if he was about to faint from the heat. Bojo was smart. Once she realized this, she took a huge step forward. Chin-mo also noticed that he had stayed in the bathtub for too long. His breathing was unstable, but he wasn't so weak that he would faint. But Bojo didn't think so. Her heart ached for her pet. Momo, are you out of breath now? The last time I went to the snow mountain with my dad to soak in the hot spring, I was also like this. Don't be afraid, I'll carry you out now. Carry him out? Hug. How could Chin-mo agree? When Bojo saw the little princess's expression, she knew that he was going to be shy again. This time, he didn't even give her a chance to reject. With a ferocious movement, he directly picked up the seemingly weak young Master Chin from the bathtub. Whoosh! Water splashed everywhere. At that moment, Chin-mo's eyes widened. He had really underestimated the little tiger's ability to cause trouble. Bojo wanted to show off her strength as a boyfriend. After all, in order to gain the little princess's trust, she had to straighten her back and carry him out. However, the moment she picked Momo up, Momo's expression changed. She seemed to have seen something she shouldn't have. That looks like... Bojo was in a daze. She looked at the person in her arms, then at his face, and then back at herself. He suddenly understood something. Her little brain suddenly had an epiphany. There was another splash of water. Bojo released him. The two people returned to the bathtub. Chin-mo's face was full of water. Bojo was the same. However, the latter was rather guilty. He looked around with his round tiger eyes. Momo, do you believe me? This is all a misunderstanding. From the beginning to the end, it was all a misunderstanding. Chin-mo didn't want to talk at all. His little face was so cold that he looked like a little prince. Bojo raised her right hand, lying through her teeth. I didn't see anything. Chin Mo smirked. Didn't I see your hand slip? This was not easy to explain. Even if the 5-year-old little Bojo was full of tricks, she couldn't bring herself to play tricks on him after seeing him naked. However, who would have thought that such a beautiful little princess would be a man? How could it be a man? Bojo felt indignant. His small body moved towards the other side. He sensed her intentions. Chin Mo narrowed his eyes and warned, Little Bojo. I just wanted to confirm. Little Bojo touched the back of her head, looking rather embarrassed. You still want to confirm such things? Chapter 14:11. Anyway, this day had been a nightmare for him. And the source of the devil was this little tiger. Since she had seen everything, Chin Mo didn't care anymore. He pulled a scarf over and wrapped it around his neck. He was about to go out. It was too awkward. Little Bojo drooped her ears and explained seriously, Momo, I've never recognized the wrong person before. It must be because you're too good-looking and your name sounds very cute. After Chin Mo had something on him, he wasn't as passive as he was in the bathtub. He pulled the person's hand over. He lowered his eyes and his side profile was cold. He wrote on her little palm with a little force. But in the end, it was a waste of young Master Chin's good calligraphy. After he finished writing, the person's round tiger eyes were filled with confusion. Momo, did you write Chinese characters just now? You have so many strokes. Chin Mo finally knew that this little tiger wasn't just stupid. She was also illiterate. Pulling the man along, he strolled to the desk, took out a book at random, and wrote 2 words. Chin Mo, he pointed at it, his black hair still dripping with water. Remember this is my real name. Mo as in desert dust. Amazing. Bojo's praise was sincere. The little princess was indeed a little princess. Her handwriting was so beautiful. So it was this Mo. She reached out and touched it. There were a lot of strokes. Fortunately, she had a good memory. She could remember it after just one look. Chin Mo watched as the little tiger reached out to touch her name. For some reason, her fingers paused. Then, she closed the book. Now you should know the difference between a man and a woman. So, Chin Mo reached out and pointed at the small sofa behind her. Sleep there. Don't come out again. Bojo knew that she was a guest and had to follow the host's wishes. When she heard Chin Mo's words, she ran back and threw herself on the sofa. She covered herself with a small blanket and only revealed her eyes. It wasn't Momo. It was Momo. He was really a guy. Such a good-looking boy. She had never seen him before. But after what happened just now, Momo definitely didn't like her anymore. As soon as he thought of this, Bojo couldn't help but rub her nose. Even her ears were drooping, looking listless. Finally, the little tiger stopped causing trouble. Chin Mo had wanted to turn off the lights and sleep. Under normal circumstances, he would be lying in bed and reading The Little Prince at this time. However, when he saw that furry little head with water vapor on it, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Chin Mo paused, as though he was thinking about something. Later on, he told himself to forget it. He couldn't go on like this. He didn't have the energy to care about others. Clatter. The lights dimmed. Bojo realized that she had done something wrong. She didn't make a sound, lying on the sofa. Eventually, she drifted off to sleep. As for young Master Chin, he didn't know if it was because there was another person in the room, or because he was thinking about something else, or because he was kissed, hugged, and seen naked today. The ups and downs were endless. So much so that when he closed his eyes, the figure of the culprit appeared in his mind. I can't sleep. Chi Nemo could only turn his head. From that position, he could see the little ball on the sofa. The little tiger that hadn't grown up looked so cute, but it would eat people. Chi Nemo looked at it. He was probably too tired. His eyelids started to droop. At first, he thought that he would dream of being alone in the main house of the Chin family. Other than the nanny and assistant, no one else was around. After all, everyone in the family was so busy. It was normal for him to play alone. Moreover, he was overseas now. Surprisingly, Chi Nemo didn't dream that night. Perhaps his energy and stamina were used to guard against a certain little tiger. That night, he slept very soundly. It was a snowy night. The cold moon. From time to time, the sound of an owl could be heard. This type of bird was rare in the country. But it still existed overseas. It was as though he had come to a magical world. Even the forest outside the window could be seen clearly. Morning always came at the right time. When the sun shone down, it could light up a lot of places. The white European-style villa had a completely different vibe compared to the ones in the country. This was probably the charm of the culture and architecture. The streets here were especially clean. There was also a thick layer of snow. It had been snowing for an entire night. They hadn't had time to clean it up. When they stepped on it, they would squeak. But the snow plow was already here. The driver was also wearing a furry hat, which was very appropriate for the occasion. Chi Nemo woke up when he heard the music of the snow plow. He reached out to block the light that penetrated in and then turned his head. There was no one on the small sofa on his left. It was unexpected. That little tiger actually woke up earlier than him. Chi Nemo raised his eyebrows. He didn't want to recall what happened last night. He walked into the bathroom in his pajamas. When he was brushing his teeth and saw the bathtub, he couldn't help but frown. Sometimes, having a good memory wasn't something to be happy about. He was considering if he should tell his grandfather that he wanted to change to a different room. As long as he stepped into this bathroom, that scene would always surface in his mind. But then, Chi Nemo thought about it again. There was no need. Even if he didn't want to see the little tiger next door, he would still see her. When he saw that face, even if he changed the room, he would still remember what he should remember. But there was one thing he also said. It was that night yesterday. From today onwards, everything would return to normal. Thinking of this, Chi Nemo wiped the corners of his mouth with a towel. Even though she was young, her actions showed that she had been taught well. After washing up, he even changed a set of clothes for himself before walking downstairs. Before going downstairs, Chi Nemo was already prepared to see the little tiger at the dining table. After all, he hadn't forgotten what she came here for yesterday. Since she was here to freeload. Freeloading once or twice was also freeloading. She probably wouldn't miss breakfast. But what Chi Nemo didn't expect was that this time, he made a wrong judgment. There was no sign of the little tiger at the dining table. Even the tea and snacks weren't there. Only the young butler saw him come down and greeted him with a plate of food. "Young master, you're awake. I prepared bread and steamed buns for breakfast. Which do you want to eat?" Chapter 14:12. Even though the butler was young, he was reliable. The food was placed on the tray. It was a standard American breakfast: fried eggs, bread slices, and a bowl of butter. Chi Nemo sat at the dining table. When he picked up the glass of milk, he was reminded of a certain someone who used her tiger claws to hold the milk for him to drink. The young butler didn't understand why the young master stopped. He turned his head and greeted, "Young master." Chi Nemo glanced up and asked casually, "Where is she?" "She? Who?" The young butler was confused. That was why the way of thinking overseas was different from the local way of thinking. According to Chin Mo's personality, he wouldn't ask a second time after asking once. Besides, Chin Mo didn't really need to know where that person went. He just felt that she was too young. Old Master and walked in at this moment. Behind him was a local friend. That friend was a bearded professor. He liked Chin Mo the moment he saw him and said that he wanted to introduce his granddaughter to Chin Mo. Old Master and smiled at the side. He just came here and definitely wanted to introduce his grandson to the people in the circle. Hence, the courtyard on this side. This day wasn't quiet. Moreover, Old Master had sent out an invitation before he came. Many people were curious about what the grandson of this legendary Chinese businessman looked like. Of course, those who could get the invitation were all from extraordinary backgrounds. There was an endless stream of visitors. Chin Mo had changed into an exquisitely made suit. His black hair and eyes made him look more mysterious than other children of his age. Coupled with his aura. When people first saw this noble child, they liked him. "Chin Mo. I heard my grandfather mention your name." The person who said this was a blonde girl wearing a puffy skirt. She had blue eyes and looked at him in surprise. "Are you from Japan?" Chin Mo glanced sideways. He had learned to distance himself at a young age. "No, I'm Chinese." "What a pity, I guessed wrong." The blonde girl was vexed at first, but then she smiled. "My name is Angelia. They are all my friends. Do you want to go over and say hello? That way, everyone can play together in the future and eat cocoa pancakes together." Chin Mo had a cold personality, but he knew that this was a gathering organized by his grandfather for him, so he didn't reject. However, from the beginning to the end, he spoke very little. This made many foreign children look at him from the side, feeling that he was more and more like a prince. The interaction between children was very casual, and many of them would even run around. They were little radishes, after all. It would definitely be lively if there were more of them. In comparison, some little girls were even more infatuated with Chin Mo, who had been as elegant as a pine tree the entire time. He had grown up in the military compound. This meant that Chin Mo's stance was different from other kids. Someone even asked him if he had received an aristocratic English education. Grandpa smiled and said, "No." He didn't say anything else. The adults were holding wine glasses, and even the air was filled with the aroma of food. There was also chicken and pizza placed on the long table, all steaming hot. There are many desserts in different shapes. This place was simply a paradise for children. Chin Mo stood there. During the intermission, he was bored and found a place to sit down. He raised his eyes and glanced at the room next door. The lights were on. Chapter 14:13. Since there were people here, why didn't they come over? Could it be that she didn't need to freeload today? Or did he not smell the scent in the air? A tiger like her. He probably wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity to freeload. After realizing what he was thinking, Chin Mo frowned. It was really too boring to think of that little tiger who liked to hug people. He turned his head and looked at his peers who were eating desserts. Chin Mo had never liked socializing. While the other children were making a fuss, he loved restoring blocks and exploring basements. When he was 3 years old, he didn't say a word for an entire day. Because of this, his family was worried that he might have autism. Perhaps the more sensitive and intelligent the child was, the smarter he was. The easier it was to encounter such a situation. It was from the beginning that he felt bored that he gradually lost his feelings. This was related to the environment he grew up in, and it was also related to himself. Qin Mo's nature was indifferent and he was too mature. The more he was like this, the tighter he wrapped himself up. Grandpa noticed this as well. That was why he suggested to bring his grandson for a change of environment. Children abroad should mature a little earlier. Perhaps he could find his little friends. But when Grandpa saw that his grandson was polite from start to finish, unlike the elegance he should have shown at his age, he knew that this arrangement wouldn't be very effective. Usually, parties with children wouldn't last too long. When Qin Mo followed his grandfather out to send them off, the lights in front of them were still on. His voice still carried the clarity of his age. "Grandfather, why isn't Uncle Bo here?" The two of them were good friends. If it was a banquet, the other party should have come. Old Master and didn't expect his grandson to ask him this question. He turned and smiled. "Your Uncle Bo isn't back yet." "She didn't come back." Qin Mo frowned. Grandpa replied. "Little Bojo seems to be the only one at home, but her mother will be back at night. Your Uncle Bo will probably come with a gift tomorrow. He is a completely different person at night and in the day." Qin Mo listened casually and glanced over. How old was the little tiger? How could he leave her alone at home? However, he did not ask about this matter. It was because he found it troublesome. If he asked, Grandpa would definitely send someone to pick up the little tiger or think of something else. Qin Mo thought about this and followed Grandpa in. He returned to the house. There was a huge difference between the temperature inside and outside. The rest of them hadn't left yet. In order to show his hospitality, Grandpa even asked the chef to make a Chinese-style supper. Stacks of bean buns, bowls of century egg and lean meat congee, and glutinous rice balls brought from China were just right for the children. When Angelia saw this, her pair of blue eyes seemed to be lit up. She was very cute, and the other little radishes also surrounded her. The young butler scooped a bowl of glutinous rice balls and handed it to Qin Mo. He looked at the little prince in front of him, who was so noble that he didn't look like a real person. After receiving the bowl, he said in a flat voice, "Take 2 bean buns and a bowl of porridge in a thermos box. Send it to the neighbor next door." The young golden-haired butler immediately understood and went to do it. Only then did Qin Mo lower his lids and chew on the glutinous dumplings. The way he ate was so leisurely that the children next to him were all watching. But Qin Mo didn't seem to mind. He didn't explain his actions to the young butler either. It was probably because there was only one child with the same bloodline as him here. It was inevitable that he would want to take care of her. This situation wouldn't happen in China. After all, there weren't any children at such a young age who would stay at home alone. Except for him, that was right. The little tiger's situation was very similar to his. They were all alone at home. It was the same even at night. When Qin Mo ate the first glutinous rice ball, he had already concealed most of the emotions in his eyes. Grandpa was still greeting the guests. He probably wouldn't notice him. That was good. Because if Grandpa found out that he had asked someone to send something to the little tiger next door, Grandpa would definitely throw that person to him and tie him up. That would be a huge problem for him. And he hated trouble the most. It was still snowing outside. At the end of the banquet, the arrival of the Chinese-style supper reignited the enthusiasm of many children. Basically, they were all praising Chinese cuisine. The courtyard next door was much quieter. Bojo was indeed at home. She was hugging her little keyboard, lowering her head to drink her medicine. She coughed from time to time. It wasn't very serious. She was still wearing the little tiger pajamas, and her face was abnormally red. Whenever she heard the sound of a car outside, she would run to the window and take a look. Her little tail wagged a few times, and then she would curl back into the sofa. The phone on the table rang. Bojo didn't need to look to know who it was. When she picked up the phone, she nodded twice and emphasized, "Mom, I drank my medicine obediently." When the person on the other side heard this, he smiled lightly. He wanted to fly back immediately, but he could only deal with the matters here. Bojo was the one who suggested hanging up the phone. But after hanging up the phone, she hugged her little keyboard again. She squatted there and agitated for a while. Then she bit a piece of bread. At the Bo family's side, the dining table was filled with prepared food. They hired a long-term nanny. But they preferred to cook for themselves. Even if they were eating cooked noodles. But today was an exception. Mr. Bo wasn't back and Mrs. Bo was too busy. She could only let the nanny prepare the things at home. But Bojo didn't like to let the nanny take care of her. Besides, her father still had some secrets at home. Hence, early in the afternoon, Bojo asked the nanny to go back. She strolled around the room alone, dismantling the keyboard and so on. She usually did the same thing, so she didn't feel much. She didn't know why today. It was probably because it was too lively outside. But she had a cold and couldn't go out. Hence, she was really envious of those who could go to the little princess's house. Thinking of this, little Bojo ran to the window and took a look. She coughed lightly and pouted her little mouth. Her ears drooped down. After the golden-haired butler rang the doorbell, he saw such a little tiger opening the door. He didn't understand what had happened. But he was still as enthusiastic as ever. "My beautiful lady, how can I help you?" The golden-haired butler wanted to make her happy, so he made a playful expression. "I guess you will definitely like the things in my hands. They have captured many people's hearts." As he spoke, he pushed the thermos box in his hands forward. Bojo took a look and her eyes lit up. Bean paste bun. So this is called bean paste bun. The golden-haired butler chuckled. "Young master asked me to send it over." "Young master." "Little princess." Bojo was instantly revived. The little tiger's tail swept twice and she was very polite. "Please come in." The golden-haired butler took off his hat and followed her in. He placed the thermos box on the table and the two of them chatted for a while. Then, he left. She looked at the bean paste bun and century egg lean meat porridge. Bojo reached out and tugged her little ears. Previously, she was worried that the little princess would be angry if she saw him naked. But now, it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. The little princess was really too considerate. He even asked the butler to send her a bean paste bun. The more Bojo thought about it, the bigger the smile on her face. Even though she was still coughing, it didn't affect her at all. After eating, Bojo thought about it seriously. She had to thank the little princess personally. She couldn't go like this. It was too ostentatious. When the sky got darker, she would go over after equipping herself. Moreover, the little princess had already given her food. It wouldn't be right if she didn't give him a gift in return. Bojo looked at the little keyboard in her arms. She had decided to give him her favorite toy. Also, she had to tell the little princess in person. She had seen him naked. She would take responsibility for this. That was it. That was right. Bojo clenched her little fists at her reflection in the mirror. The smile on her face was a little mischievous. At this moment, Chin-mo still didn't know that the biggest problem with him sending food over wasn't that old master and would ask. Instead, it was that the little tiger that was being fed was getting restless again. Chin-mo had never taken people saying that they liked him seriously. That was because too many people said that they liked someone, but it was just a way to express their feelings. They wouldn't care about the person who had to bear the pain and would make their own decisions. For example, in the past, there was a little girl who said that she liked him. He didn't like her. Then, the other party started crying, as if he had bullied her. Chin-mo didn't have any opinions about that girl. But at the same time, he didn't want such a thing to happen again. It was meaningless and very boring. Hence, even when the little tiger said that she liked him, he didn't take it to heart. But it was probably because the little tiger was too obedient occasionally. That was why he had a little bit of patience towards her. But when he thought about it again, she wasn't obedient but stupid. After Chin-mo and old master sent off the last batch of guests, he took off his little suit jacket and handed it to the golden-haired butler standing beside him. The butler lowered his head and reported. "Young master, Miss Gio ate everything. She shouldn't be hungry anymore. Don't worry." When Chin-mo heard this, he frowned. When did I care about whether she was hungry or not? The golden-haired butler paused. Chin-mo's voice was very calm. It's just because they are neighbors. It's not polite if I don't send something over for such a lively gathering. Moreover, Uncle Bo is grandfather's old friend. The golden-haired butler nodded and looked at the little back view that was walking up the stairs. In his heart, he wondered if the children of China matured so early. This aura was a little too strong. However, China was really a country of etiquette. Chapter 14:14. The banquet ended. The guests had already left. As the host, old master was exhausted after a day of hard work. But because he was a businessman, even if it was night time, old master would still be busy. Old master had urgent matters to attend to. For example, a sudden international conference. Old master was worried that his grandson would be tired today, so he specially instructed his subordinates to clean up the living room and not make too much noise. There would be specialized people to clean up after the banquet. After Chin-mo sent them off, he reached out and pulled open his little suit. After entering the room, he turned back into the quiet little prince. Even his side profile was cold and indifferent. His hair was black and soft, sticking to the back of his ears. He was wearing a white shirt. When he turned his little body to untie his sleeves, the air of elegance seeped out again. At 5 years old, there weren't many children like him at this age. Using movie Queen Anne's words, her cold little boy sometimes didn't seem like a real person. But at this moment, Chin-mo was still a little immature. For example, the sigh that happened now. It was actually a little cute. Chin-mo had originally planned to take off his shirt and take a shower. But just as he was about to put his shirt down, he suddenly frowned and looked towards the floor-to-ceiling window not far away. The bulging movement made Chin-mo, who had grown up in the military courtyard, raise his eyebrows slightly. Then his handsome and elegant little face was filled with coldness. Just as he was about to press the internal line for the bodyguards on the first floor to come up. Suddenly, there was the sound of a flower pot falling on the ground. There was also the sound of the wind outside. And a certain someone muttering to herself, "Is this window so hard to open? It seems like I have to cut it open. When the time comes, my dad will say I'm naughty again. How troublesome." After hearing this sentence, Chin-mo's brows didn't relax. Chin-mo's brows didn't relax. Instead, they furrowed even tighter. You have to be troubled about cutting the window. Which normal person would cut the window? Chin-mo realized that he had started to take deep breaths again. He looked down at his upper body. He wasn't wearing anything. The temperature of his little face dropped by a few degrees. Outside the window, little Bojo was shaking her tiger tail and studying the window in front of her seriously. His moves were as fierce as a tiger, but his actual score was 2-5. After a long time, he felt that he was still too gentle. He simply pulled the small school bag over and was about to use the tools to open it. Little Bojo didn't expect to be discovered. After all, her ability to climb over walls was well known in the surrounding area. Although the weather today was a little cold. However, she still deliberately avoided the people on the first floor. She even took advantage of her small size to perfectly avoid the camera in the corner of the family. Therefore, his actions were a little unrestrained. His tiger face was covered with a tiger hat, and he looked extremely serious. When Chi Nemo lifted the curtains, he saw a little tiger that had climbed over the wall. For some reason, she was wearing a small mask on her face. Her small body was tilted to the side, and beside her was a flower pot. It looked as if she could fall at any time. However, she didn't realize that when her big round eyes saw Chi Nemo, she was first stunned. Then, she immediately smiled brightly. Even the dimples on her cheeks could be seen clearly. Momo. Chapter 14-15. She couldn't help but feel a headache. Could this idiot have some safety awareness? Chi Nemo pulled the window open and said calmly, "Come down." Was he angry? Bojo was still young back then. She couldn't understand why the little princess was angry. Was it because she came too late and disturbed his rest? She remembered that it was indeed quite late. He didn't sleep on time because of her yesterday. Also, he saw her naked. Bojo admitted that she felt guilty. She moved her hands and feet more nimbly. She came down when he asked her to. When she came down, she didn't forget to turn back to take her little keyboard. This action caused a thin layer of sweat to form on Chi Nemo's forehead. He didn't think and said, "What are you doing?" Bojo opened her eyes wide. Her tiger tail was still sweeping. "I'm taking the little keyboard." After she finished speaking, she jumped onto the ground and shook the snow off her head. She handed the thing in her hand forward as though she was presenting a treasure. She was still wearing the little mask on her face. Her voice was muffled and she sounded a little fierce. Chi Nemo finally returned to normal when he saw her land on the ground. He wasn't worried that something would happen to her. It was just that she was so young and she was lying on the windowsill alone. Didn't she consider the possibility of falling down? The more Chi Nemo thought about it, the colder his eyes became. He didn't reach out to take the little keyboard. This made Bojo feel slightly awkward. She first looked up at Chi Nemo's little face. When she lowered her head, she remembered that not everyone was like her and liked the unusual gift of a keyboard. She seemed to have given it to the wrong person. With this thought, Bojo felt a little depressed. But this depression didn't last long. In the next second, Bojo raised her little face. Her eyes were still round and bright. "Momo, you don't like little keyboards, right? What do you like? I'll give it to you next time. I have many toys." "I don't like anything." Chi Nemo tilted his head. Then, his fingers paused again. Because a certain little tiger started coughing for some reason. She coughed softly, one cough after another. This made him frown again. His gaze landed on her face with the little mask. When he spoke, he sounded a little cold. "It's so late. Why are you wearing a mask?" "This? I caught a cold yesterday. I didn't want to come over at first because I was afraid that I would infect you. But when I saw that you asked the butler to send something to me, I wanted to come over and thank you." If I wore a mask like this, I wouldn't infect you. Yesterday, I realized that your body is very weak. If I pounced on you, you would fall. I can't let you catch another cold. Bojo placed the little keyboard on her arm and used her free hand to pinch her ear. Chinamo was about to get angry when he heard her mumbling. Which boy liked to be called weak? But at that moment, he seemed to have remembered something. Did you catch a cold yesterday? Chinamo had always had a good memory. The visual sense was also strong. At that moment, for some reason, the image of that person curled up on the sofa without drying her hair appeared in his mind. Had she caught a cold because he hadn't let her get up and dry her hair? Thinking of this, Chinamo frowned again. However, the little tiger did not notice it. She continued, Momo, are you going to sleep? I'll go back first today. I'll look for you when I'm better. With that, Bojo prepared to head back the way she had come. Unexpectedly, she had only just lifted her leg. The tiger's tail was caught by someone. She turned her body sideways and saw the indifferent face of the prince. Momo. Bojo didn't understand. Her eyes widened and her tiger ears perked up. Chinamo lowered his voice. Little Bojo, are you dumb? Bojo felt the need to explain herself. Chinamo didn't give her a chance. With a forceful move, he picked up the person who was about the same size as him. Bojo was still a little confused. But after being hugged, she didn't care about the little princess asking her if she was an idiot. She smiled happily. Chinamo didn't give her a pleasant look. Why are you running around when you have a cold? I didn't run around today. I didn't feel well, so I went home first. Otherwise, I would have accompanied you for breakfast, Bojo replied seriously. After she finished, she couldn't help coughing. Chinamo took a deep breath and reached out to press the phone beside him. The butler downstairs picked up the phone. He was surprised that there was an internal line at this time. Young master. Bring the first aid box up. When Chinamo said this, people would often forget his current age. The golden-haired butler heard the words and his eyelids twitched. Young master, what's wrong? Please don't let anything happen to this young master. The importance that Chairman An placed on this young master was indescribable. They had just arrived. If anything happened, Chairman An would definitely return to China immediately. Chinamo could tell what the young butler was thinking from his voice. It's not me. Bring the first aid box up. You don't have to tell grandfather. Also, bring a pot of hot water up. Hot water. Basically, the cute foreigners wouldn't understand that Chinese people had to drink hot water when they were sick. In China, if you had a cold, you had to drink more water. If your stomach wasn't feeling well, you had to drink more hot water. If your aunt came, you had to drink more hot water too. Even though the golden-haired butler had only interacted with his little master for 2 days, he had a basic understanding of his personality. Moreover, Chairman An had said that no matter what request his little master had, he just had to follow it. Hence, no matter how worried the golden-haired butler was, he didn't bother Chairman An. After all, they were having a business meeting. But when the golden-haired butler carried the first aid box upstairs, he suddenly realized something. If his little master didn't say it was him, who could it be? When the golden-haired butler pushed open the door, his question was answered. Unknowingly, there was a little tiger in the room. The little tiger was sitting on the sofa in the room with a small mask on her face. She seemed to have done something wrong. She was hugging her little keyboard and looking at his little master, who seemed to be in deep thought. When she saw him, her eyes lit up. Hi, we meet again. Honestly speaking. The young butler was a little confused. Even his golden hair was fluttering. What was going on? Why was the person from the opposite house here? When he had sent the things over, she was still in the opposite room. Besides, he had been tidying up in the living room downstairs. Other than sending people away, he hadn't seen anyone else enter. He hadn't seen the little tiger either. How did she suddenly appear in his young master's room? The young butler's thoughts were all revealed on his face. He finally met someone who would show his thoughts on his face. Bojo jumped down from the sofa, wanting to tell him how she came over. Little Bojo. Just these 3 words. He successfully made the little tiger unable to be mischievous anymore. After Chin Mo called her name, he glanced sideways at the young butler standing by the door. The young butler didn't know why, but when his young master looked at him like this, he felt that his presence here was unnecessary. No, that wasn't right. There was something more than unnecessary. It was as if she was saying, "What are you doing here? You're here," and she's getting restless. The young butler, this should be the feeling of being shot while lying down, as the Chinese often say. Indeed, Chin Mo felt that the butler's appearance affected a certain little tiger. Her throat was uncomfortable and she kept coughing. She was still mischievously trying to speak. With that in mind, Chin Mo took a deep breath. Then he took the medicine box from the young butler and took out a thermometer. His little face was cold as he walked in front of a certain someone. Mask. Bojo saw this and knew that the little princess wanted to take her temperature. She cooperated and removed her little mask. Then she opened her mouth and bit on the thermometer. The young butler was enlightened. So the medicine box that the little young master wanted was for Miss Jo. But there was one thing he was really curious about. How exactly did Miss Jo come in? But it was obvious that his duties were only limited to delivering the medicine box and hot water. Because the little young master had given him a look, asking him to figure it out on his own and leave. Even though they didn't speak the same language and were of different nationalities, the meaning of the look didn't matter. She saw the door close. Little Bojo felt a little regretful. She didn't even have time to brag about her heroic deeds. This was the first time she climbed such a high wall. Besides, she wanted to ask him what the little princess liked. From the looks of it, she could only find a chance to ask Grandpa in the future. She bit on the thermometer. This time, she couldn't speak. She could only look at the little princess who was standing in front of her and picking medicine for her. Bojo blinked as she looked at him. The little princess seemed to be very impatient with her. She could tell from his expression. But he still felt very gentle. Other people wouldn't be so nice to her. He wasn't afraid that she would infect her when she caught a cold. He even gave her medicine. Bojo couldn't help but smile when she thought about this. She even jumped down from the sofa and circled around Chin Mo. The little tiger behind her kept wagging her tail. Chin Mo took out the cold medicine. From the side, he saw a certain someone with a bright smile. At that time, Chin Mo even thought, did this person know how to smile? In the end, it would give rise to emotions that even a child would have. It really made him jealous. Her parents must be special to her. Thinking of this, Chin Mo came to a sudden realization. He knew he was wrong. Because yesterday, when he saw the light that didn't turn on, he knew that she was like him. Her parents were very busy. Chapter 14-16. Ah, look, our little tiger Bo was still very obedient. She bared her soft tiger teeth so that it would be easier for him to take the thermometer out. When she opened her mouth, her almond-like tiger eyes were still staring at Chin Mo. She looked as though she had something to say. Chin Mo gave her a cold look as though he was saying, "Don't you dare to speak again." Little tiger Bo felt that this wasn't right. She was also puzzled by the hostility her little princess had towards her. Chin Mo didn't bother about her. He took out the thermometer and looked at it. Your temperature is normal. Bojo nodded. I don't have a fever anymore. Mom gave me some medicine in the morning. Chin Mo heard her hoarse voice. After she finished speaking, she coughed. Her head was probably a little heavy from the coughing. Even her little shoulders were trembling a little. Didn't having a fever mean that she wasn't sick? Chin Mo couldn't be bothered to say anything to this idiot. He opened a packet of medicine and took out a pill. His slender fingers touched the side of her mouth. Ah woo. Bojo never rejected anything. Even if the medicine was a little bitter, it was given by her little princess. It was still delicious. On the other hand, after Chin Mo fed her, he frowned fiercely. Then he placed the medicine in her hand. Eat it yourself. He must have been possessed. Why did he feed her personally just now? He thought about it. He must have been so angry with this little tiger that he lost his ability to think. After letting out a long sigh, Chin Mo returned to his noble little prince appearance. He walked towards the window. Then he reached out and closed the window. Then he locked it twice. Bojo peeled the medicine and watched at the side. When she wagged her tail, she had a feeling that her little princess didn't actually want to lock the window. He wanted to throw her out through the window. If it was possible, Chin Mo wanted to do that. But for some reason, not only did he allow her to come down, he even asked the butler to bring the medicine box upstairs and feed her the medicine personally. He didn't know how his grandfather would react when he heard about this. Chin Mo's eyes moved. When he turned his body, he saw the little tiger peeling the medicine with great difficulty. She ate 5 pills in one go. 5 pills. Chin Mo pressed down on the man's tiger paw. Little Bojo. Bojo widened her eyes. After looking at him for a while, she seemed to have been enlightened. Momo, why do you keep sighing? Ever since I came in, you have been sighing. Are you tired? Is there anything else? Let me tell you, as a person, the most important thing is to be happy. Nothing else is important. Pat my head. Why was he always sighing? Chin Mo watched as the little claw appeared on his head and rubbed it twice. He told himself not to bother with a sick person. Besides, there was no doubt that she was an idiot. Chin Mo looked at her, his expression ugly. Are you done touching me? Bojo shook her head. No, Momo, your hair is so soft and nice to touch. It's different from mine. Mine is too hard and prickles. Chin Mo smirked. Drink the medicine and go home. Also, don't climb over the wall again. Bojo paused. She lowered her lids and lifted the small bowl. She drank the medicine that the little princess had prepared for her and glanced at the window at the side. I'll go out from the main door, Bojo said. She jumped down from the sofa. She hugged the little keyboard in her hands and said, Momo, I'll come and find you tomorrow. She planned to leave. The more she acted like this, the more Chin Mo felt annoyed by the small cough. He had said before that he didn't like being liked by others for granted. Because he needed to respond to all liking. If he didn't respond, it would be his fault. He was more resistant to such things. But this little tiger wasn't just a little stupid. Even when she was sick, she didn't know how to use this weakness to threaten him. If he asked her to leave, she would leave. She seemed to listen to everything he said. She didn't want him to respond just because she liked him. Instead, she wanted to give him something. Chin Mo turned his head. He wanted to read and not think about that idiot anymore. But just as he made up his mind, the young butler's voice came from the open door. The young butler's voice came from the open door. It was a unique American accent. "Oh, Miss Joe, are you going back? It's still snowing outside. Mr. Bow and Mrs. Bow aren't home. At this time, the heater in the living room should be cold. Why don't you wait for a while? I'll go down to get some charcoal and go with you." Bojo raised her eyebrows when she heard this form of address. The young butler was a little shy. "Don't Chinese people call themselves this? I just learned it from an online novel. There's a translation in the novel so I can learn a lot of knowledge." Bojo was still young and didn't understand. "So this is how people call themselves?" "Yes," the young butler said with certainty. This made Chin Mo frown. He couldn't focus on the book anymore. He reached out his hand and pressed the young butler's intercom with his white and tender fingers. When the young butler saw the call, the smile on his face was still there. His expression gradually changed. "Young master. I'm here." "Ha. Send Miss Joe back to your room." "Okay, no problem." After hanging up the phone, the butler lowered his head. He was a little confused. "Miss Joe, young master asked you to sleep in his room tonight." Bojo was confused too. Was it such a good thing? The young butler had a lot of thoughts going through his mind. After all, he had watched the banquet. There were so many funny children, but he hadn't seen his young master treat anyone specially. He definitely wouldn't touch a cup that had been touched by others. Not to mention the food. He was a gentleman, but he didn't dance with others. The young butler even suspected that this young master from China was like what the novel said. Was he the reincarnation of the leader of some faction? He was so special because his bones were so good. He had the etiquette and alienation that a young man like him shouldn't have. He had studied it before. His young master was definitely a clean freak, and it wasn't a small one. Every time his young master wiped his hands, he would be especially careful. He would change his clothes 3 times a day. The bathroom had to be clean. Even his shoes were spotless. No one would doubt that he was a genuine little prince. However, the golden-haired butler was a little puzzled. Such a clean freak young master would actually let someone spend the night at his house. Although it had happened once yesterday. But yesterday and today were different. Yesterday was arranged by Chairman In. The young master's entire body was filled with cold resistance. But today, it was the young master who suggested it. Chapter 14-17. However, since it was the young master's order, even if he had a bunch of questions in his heart, he wouldn't say them out loud. But the golden-haired butler didn't put on his professional smile. His young master gave him a gaze. That gaze was indescribable. If he had to describe it, it would probably be to stay away from the little tiger. The golden-haired butler watched in a daze as the door was closed. He started to reflect on what he had done wrong. After all, in the novels, offending an expert would result in a tragic outcome. No, he had to learn more about China's profound knowledge and culture later. Momo. Bojo hugged the little keyboard in her arms. Her smile was brighter than anyone else's. "I'm back. I know you're back." Chin Mo lowered his gaze. He didn't want to talk to her. After a while, he said, "I don't call myself that anymore. It's how people used to express their politeness and humility in ancient times." "Is that so?" Bojo's eyes lit up again. She had grown up abroad. Usually, she only knew how to fight and study the little keyboard and a bunch of little tadpole codes. She had very little knowledge. In the past, she had interacted with children from China. But no one seemed to understand these things. The little princess was different. She knew everything. When Bojo thought about this, she felt inexplicably happy. Momo, you're amazing. The sudden praise made Chin Mo tilt his head. Don't say such nice words. Go back to your seat. Okay. She became very obedient again. But at the same time, she didn't forget to be mischievous. Momo, your ears are so red. Chin Mo took a deep breath and placed the book in his hands down. They're hot. Oh. Bojo smiled. She thought that Momo was so awkward. He was obviously shy, but he insisted that he was hot. But she was very understanding and wouldn't expose him. Also, her little princess was even more adorable when he was awkward. Bojo seemed to be addicted to teasing her pet. She would say a few words from time to time. In the beginning, Chin Mo still ignored her. Then, he allowed the little tiger to be mischievous. Bojo continued to be mischievous. She realized that she might disturb the little princess's reading. Hence, she curled up on the sofa quietly and started to touch her little keyboard. When Chin Mo saw her like that, he recalled what had happened last night. Especially after the other party drank the medicine, he was still coughing, and there was no sign of him getting better. Chin Mo stood up. Go to the bed. On the bed. Bojo was still wearing the little tiger's pajamas. When she heard his words, her ears perked up. Momo, I thought you didn't like other people sleeping on your bed. She wasn't stupid. She could tell. Momo held a grudge against a lot of people. She wasn't sure if others understood. In any case, she understood. Moreover, she was also like this. She didn't like others to understand her things. But since yesterday, her little princess had become an exception. When Chin Mo heard the question, his fingers paused. Indeed, I don't like it. That's why I can only sleep with you today. You're not allowed to touch it in the future. After finishing this sentence, Chin Mo suddenly realized something. That was, he seemed to be less and less good at pretending in front of this little tiger. He shouldn't be like this. At the very least, one had to be polite when dealing with guests. He couldn't speak like this. But he couldn't control himself. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.